Can I get a motion to return to open session, please?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote.
Carla,
Aye.
Joe,
Yeah.
Lizzie,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Renee, David,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Okay, welcome everyone to the governing board meeting for the Woodland Community Consolidated School District number 50 Board of Education meeting for January 28th, 2021. The meeting will now come to order. Roll call vote.
Carla,
Here.
Joe,
Here.
Lizzie,
Here.
Jennifer,
Here.
Renee, David,
Here.
Corey.
Here.
We have quorum.
Okay. So we are now ready for the Pledge of Allegiance. It appears we have two intermediate students that will lead us in the pledge. Is that correct, Dr. Casey?
No,
No?
they have one intermediate student who's led with her teacher.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of background on Olivia. Tonight we have with us Olivia Steffen, who is a 5th grade student who likes to be called Livy. She lives with her mom, her dad, who are Lisa and Joseph, and their brother Oscar, and she has 2 dogs, Rosie and Fanny. They are interested in joining track or maybe playing the piano someday. When not at school, they like to listen to Billie Eilish or watch the TV show Gravity Falls, and their favorite movie is Frozen 2. Their dream of someday becoming a Disney animator. Since meeting their hearing itinerant teacher, Mrs. Pearson, can you give us a wave, Mrs. Pearson? Who is also hard of hearing, they've taken an interest in learning American Sign Language. They decided to present the Pledge of Allegiance tonight in American Sign Language, only without voicing it, so the people could appreciate the language in silence, just as it is. Though we all know the pledge and we could follow along, they wanted to give people a sense of what it feels like to not have captions or language accessible to them in a world in which many people take access and communication for granted. So tonight we're asking the board to not voice the pledge and just to follow along as Olivia signs it. So Jessica and Olivia, please take it away. We'll stand up. Thank you so much. Ms. Pearson, is there anything you'd like to add about this? You were great at getting this together for us.
That was amazing. I'm so proud of Livy. That was amazing. I'm really proud that they decided to do this voice off, because it is truly a message of, a lot of times deaf and hard of hearing students get, people don't always think about, oh, I should add captions, or I should do this, or maybe I should be visual. And so, Livy, I thought that was so amazing that you wanted to show that and just give the true language. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much. We're so proud of you. Excellent job.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You say thank you in sign language.
Thank you. Thank you. And this is clapping.
Mhm.
Bye-bye.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Next up, we have a motion can I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second. Discussion?
I'm sorry, who seconded?
I did.
Okay.
Discussion? Roll call vote.
Joe,
Yes.
Lizzie,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Renee, David,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Carla.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay. Next up is the superintendent showcase. I'll turn it back over to Dr. Casey.
Thank you, Dr. Little. Tonight we have 2 items on our superintendent showcase. Our first item is I've invited Dr. Maychek to talk about our winter break assistance program. And then I will take the second item. So Dr. Maychek, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Casey. Good evening, board members, and thanks for the opportunity to share this program, the highlights of this program with you. Thank you, Brooke. One of the interesting and necessary byproducts of this year-long pandemic has been the need for schools and teachers to innovate, to find new ways to deliver instruction, new ways to receive it, and new ways to reach and engage our students. From a pedagogical standpoint, the quarantine and remote learning have required us to re-examine what we as educators want for our students and for each other. As we have continued to work diligently for a safe return to school for our students and staff, we are realizing that some of our innovations, such as the use of Zoom breakout rooms, a recognition of the importance of self-care and mental and emotional health, and our understanding of the vital role that positive peer and teacher relationships play in student learning, for example, are much stronger than COVID and will become staples of 21st century teacher preparation pedagogy even once we return to school. Having had the opportunity to review feedback of the various return to school focus groups conducted by Dr. Casey and our 4 principals, these 2 consistent themes continue to emerge regardless of the composition of the groups. They were, how can I get additional help for my child, and how can I be sure that my child is on target related to academic content standards? We heard those comments and were committed to addressing them. To do so, we thought we needed to find a way to offer extra help, but in a way that would not pull instructional minutes from an already shortened school day. We needed to find a way to replicate the one-on-one individualized learning experience on which all students, but especially those already struggling with various aspects of remote learning, would thrive. Developing a math and reading support program outside of school hours over winter break gave us the opportunity to offer academic assistance to some of our most vulnerable students in a way that did not negatively impact their academic schedule or school day. Next slide, please. Thank you. To identify a group of students for this pilot, we started with the Illinois State Board of Education's prioritized list of student groups to be considered for return to in-person learning. Right after Thanksgiving, we also sent a survey to the district's teaching staff to gauge interest in participation in the pilot. Participating teachers would be paid the hourly summer school teaching stipend. These stipends would be paid through Federal CARES Act grant dollars at a total cost of under $10,000. We were hoping to cap the program at 20 teachers and 100 students. Each school provided us with a list of potential students who might benefit from the pilot. Members of the Educational Services Department contacted more than 100 parents during the week of December 7th via email or phone calls to explain the pilot and invite them to participate. The week before winter break, we finalized this pilot with 19 teachers and 65 students. The 3.5 to 1 student-teacher ratio fell right in the middle of the 5 to 1 maximum ratio in the program proposal that was approved by Dr. Casey. Once these sessions started, 17 students whose family had verbally committed to the pilot either did not participate at all or attended only the first session. Teachers would teach 6 90-minute math or reading language arts sessions to groups, ideally to groups of no more than 5 students. Next slide, thank you. So these 2 graphs show the makeup of the pilot cohort of students. Not surprisingly, given the participation criteria of attendance and missing work, the largest student group participating in the pilot came from middle school, about 70% of the kids. Similarly, the largest number of teachers interested in participating in the pilot also came from middle school. The teacher numbers and student cancellations, for lack of a better word, required some changes in grouping to better match student needs with the teacher's experience and expertise levels regarding grade level, content area, and the ability to support English English language learners, for example. The 19 teachers and 16 parents responded to a short survey at the end of the 6-session pilot. The response to this item is significant for 2 reasons. First, it's an extremely positive response from both groups, which was a really pleasant surprise given the fact that participation meant giving up parts of 6 different days, sometimes twice a day during winter break. Second, the pilot provided us an opportunity to work on Goal 3B of the strategic plan, which is to investigate and create opportunities within the school day to build personal relationships between staff, students, and their peers. This response is significant again because of its high average score among both teachers and parents, and because it helps us to work on Goal 1A of the strategic plan, which was to intensify opportunities to consistently deliver instruction that is differentiated to meet all students' needs. Educational researcher John Hattie's meta-analyses on teaching strategies and learning beliefs found that high teacher efficacy was one of the best predictors of a student's academic success. The average response is already high, and from the open-ended survey items, I believe would have been even higher among the teachers if the staff had had more time to connect with the students' teachers about things like missing assignments and learning styles. What is clear, however, is that both parents and teachers believe that these 6 interactions were meaningful enough to make a lasting impact on the students and their future performance. This item is significant because it addresses Strategic Plan Goal 4B, to investigate current support systems that address academic behavior, emotional, and social needs of students, and make improvements based on these findings. Many students recommended for the pilot were lacking meaningful connection with school, whether from an academic or an SEL standpoint. The small groups and breakout rooms utilized by the teachers provided a safe setting for students to meet and work with new peers who were facing the same academic challenges that they were. So we approached this pilot from the perspective of a tiered intervention. If it worked, great, we thought we can expand it. If it didn't, we would at least know that a small group setting and individualized assistance were not necessarily helpful supports for the students who participated. This response is really encouraging. It tells us that we have hit upon a relatively low-cost model of support that could work at all grade levels and theoretically for a variety of content areas. Every teacher and every parent who participated would participate again, and that was pretty incredible. So the 19 outstanding teachers who participated in this program were the backbone of this pilot, and they provided excellent feedback for improving this model moving forward. One suggestion was to begin communicating this type of support to all parents and teachers across the district. Some teachers offered to teach during spring break if we offered it, while others offered to support students on a Saturday morning in this way, with small groups. Because some teachers were not teaching students at their own grade level, they thought that having more information about the students in their group and the assignments they were missing would be meaningful. Parents wanted teachers working with their children to be teachers at that grade level also. But as I mentioned earlier, just by the nature of the program, this match was not always possible. Finally, I think we need to talk to the students who have participated in programs like this to get their feedback, especially those for whom this support has been successful. Ideally, we could learn from these students how the elements that made this type of instruction engaging and enjoyable might be replicated in their school days on Monday through Friday. So at this point, I will take any questions if the board has any.
I want to thank Dr. Maychek and thank all the teachers who worked on this project. It really was one of those things where he came to me and he said, I really think we could be doing something or doing more. And do you mind if I try it? And I said, no, go for it. So he did this, and again, it was a pilot. It was something that because of the pandemic, we thought we needed to do. So I want to thank him, but I also want to thank all the teachers who went out of their comfort zones over winter break and did this for our students, because like he said, now we found some other ways that maybe we replicate and duplicate and improve this. So I just want to thank you all. It was great.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Thank you. Great job. Awesome. Any other questions from the board?
Just a comment that I hope that this is just the first of more to come.
Yeah, me too. It was a really positive experience for everyone involved. Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that we're finding creative ways, Dr. Machek, to help our kids who need it. And thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Dr. Machek. The next item on our agenda is a really exciting item for Woodland and for all of our educators here and for all of our students here. We were notified 2 weeks ago that Dr. Lisa West has been named the Illinois Principal of the Year for the Lakes region from the Illinois Principals Association. So Dr. West is with us right now. Dr. West excels really in positive, yes, we're clapping, excels in positive changes. She's an expert when it comes to curriculum and instruction and assessment. She's been an assistant principal at the intermediate school, then she went over to elementary where she was a principal, and now she's gone back to the intermediate school as the principal. And she's always been a leader in regards to instructional improvement efforts within the school. She has a great ability to motivate others in a very caring and positive way. A lot of times when she's doing something for her staff, she'll send it over to me too. And it's, just cute little ideas to let people know that she's still here and she cares and she's leading them through this crisis. She's very confident and knows the value of shared leadership. She's really, when you talk about a lifelong learner, she is a lifelong learner. There's always new things to learn, and Lisa's the one that wants to do it. She's in her leadership roles both in the classroom, and she has led, professional development workshops for our administrators here and elsewhere. She really gives people the opportunity to develop and shine, and that's what she wants all of our staff to do. She mentors people first, and then she allows them to take that initiative themselves. She really demonstrates a positive impact at her school, within the community. She's an exceptional leader. She's a wonderful representation of what we value here in leadership at Woodland, and it is my pleasure and honor to congratulate you publicly as Illinois Principal of the Year for the Lakes region. So congratulations, Dr. West.
Well, thank you. Wow, that's kind of like, that was a lot, but I know for those of you who know me are confused right now because I'm usually not at a loss for words, but that was very nice, Dr. Casey. Thank you. So I just want you all to know that I share this recognition with the entire Woodland community, and I'm humbled and honored. And thank you all for and I also want to take the time, if it's all right, to thank each and every one of you who took time out of your day to send me congratulations. Like, I'm still reading them, and it's like, I just kind of, I have decided that we all deserve to have a day where everyone just sends you an enormous amount of positive feedback because you can like float on that for a really long time. And I have been doing that and just really want to thank you for that. And the beautiful tulips, they're wonderful. They were my favorite. I don't know how you knew that, but that's perfect. And then just finally, I want to, again, thank the board and formally thank Dr. Casey because Woodland is the place that gave me my first opportunity to be an educational leader in an administrative role. And I don't think that I would have had that opportunity or grown as much as I have being a leader in Woodland. And I just thank you for all of the mentors who have supported me and continue to do that in my growth as an educational leader. So sorry, I'm gonna mute myself now because now I'm rambling, but thank you. I appreciate it so much.
Lori?
Thank you. And again, congratulations, Lisa. On behalf of all of us, congratulations. So thank you very much.
Yep, congratulations. Board, any questions, comments?
Much deserved. Congratulations.
Very well deserved, Dr. West. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jen. Thanks, Lizzie.
Okay.
So that concludes the Superintendent Showcase for today.
Okay. Well, great job. We'll move forward with citizen statements, and due to COVID and remote board meetings, Laura will read the citizen statements. Will Lizzie be helping you, Laura? You're muted. Oh, can she hear us?
Laura, you're on mute.
Sorry. I think I'll be okay. If I come across one and I stumble a little bit, I will go ahead and forward it to Lizzie. So, okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So currently we have another one that was added. So we do have 8 citizen statements for tonight. The first one is from Alexandra Zermano, and she states, she is a parent in the district. She says, first and foremost, I want to thank the school board and Dr. Casey for all of the time and effort you are putting into guarantee that our children will be safe to returning to school. I'm writing this letter to express my confusion over the current hybrid teaching plan. I have a daughter in the 1st grade dual language program. Additionally, I'm also a high school teacher, and I understand how complicated all of this is. While I favor sending our kids back to school as soon as possible, I do not understand why the school decided to go with the current hybrid plan, and in parentheses, versus the original presented plan. When the school released its original hybrid plan, where students would be in school half day and home doing asynchronous work and a special on the other half of the day, I thought it was an excellent plan that could be effective, unlike most other hybrid plans. At least in the younger grades, our students are used to this model as it is how our day primarily is set up, which would make for a straightforward transition for those students going back in person. Additionally, it allowed students to consistently be in school each day, except the full remote days, which is very important for social emotional development, and the students who come from low SES households, and those who have unsafe home lives. In contrast, the current hybrid plan of having students on a 3-week cycle is impractical, especially for the younger students. Any primary or elementary teacher will tell you that it takes weeks for students to learn the daily routines of school. The current plan will result in the amounts of instructional time lost due to teachers having to reteach the students appropriate classroom behaviors and expectations, especially due to the new rules put in place because of COVID. To continue, I want to understand why the district feels the hybrid model should look the same as the primary and elementary levels as it does at the middle school level. I know that creating these plans is complicated, especially when you consider our teachers' union. However, it does not make sense to teach our younger students in the same manner as our older students when there are other options. The current plan for having teachers instruct live classes as well as those learning remotely at the same time may be plausible for middle school students, but I do not believe that it is at all practical for younger students. During a typical school year, a district would never ask elementary and middle school teachers to instruct their classes in the same manner, since these students are at different developmental stages and therefore learn in vastly different ways. This year is already difficult enough for students, so why are they now being put into one box expected to learn in the same manner? Asking a 5 to 9-year-old to have the discipline to pay attention to a teacher who is not directly instructing them is practically impossible, especially when most of the students do not have someone who can sit and help them focus throughout the day. I understand some parents are not comfortable sending their children to school right now, and they have the right to make that decision. However, many of us not only want, but need our children back at school. Research from a longitudinal study of students in Chicago by the Annie E. Casey Foundation, 2010, found that students who are not proficient in reading by the end of 3rd grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school than their peers who are proficient readers. Additionally, the research found that 88% of high school students who do not earn a diploma were not proficient readers by the end of the 3rd grade. Further, the same study found that 3rd graders behind in literacy development were incapable of comprehending up to half of the curriculum they encountered in 4th grade, mainly because it is the first time where students were expected to quote unquote read to learn versus learning to read in grades K-3. This year has already put many children in jeopardy concerning their literacy development. I do not fault the teachers for this, as I know they are doing everything they can while teaching virtually. Nonetheless, it is time for our children to be back in person with live teachers in front of them. At the last board meeting, one of the members made an incredibly ignorant comment about how 1 year of virtual learning will not have a long-lasting impact on our children. She also said that parents could not worry about their children not growing up to be CEOs just because they had to complete 1 year of school remotely. I'm not worried about the children who grow up to be CEOs. I'm concerned about the children who will not graduate high school, the children who are now so far behind in literacy and development that they may never catch up and truly be set up for failure. Children are not super spreaders. Research shows that this, and in parentheses, refer to my husband's citizen letter from the last board meeting. Medical professionals have been saying from the beginning that our children should be in school for a multitude of reasons. It is time for this to happen. While there are expectations, most teachers are not serious at risk. While there are expectations, most teachers are not at serious risk if they return to school. If they wear masks, wash their hands often, stay in their rooms when possible, and do not mingle with colleagues unnecessarily, they will be safe. Private schools in the area and local and non-local districts that have been in person in any capacity have shown this. At the last board meeting, board members and Dr. Casey agreed that parents who are opting to be in-person learning would send their children back to school regardless if the plan is in place. Dr. Casey also commented that fewer people chose in-person learning than anticipated, meaning in-person classes will be smaller than expected. The district should be making it a priority to get our children safely into school as much as possible. For these reasons, I am imploring Dr. Casey and the school board to go back to its original hybrid plan, at least for younger students who are not as capable of working without direct instruction and guidance each day. Our children have the right to quality education, and while teachers have been doing their best they can virtually, education is better in person. There is no reason for our children not to have that opportunity. As parents, we know this is best for our children. Let us make the choice. Best wishes, Alex Zermano. And she also does give the link for the report from the research study from the Annie Casey research. Citizen statement number 2 comes from Gail Saunders. She says, "Dear Laura Campanella, thank you for your call and for providing me with the contact information to District 50. As a taxpayer, I'm concerned that your district has not opened up due to supposed fears over COVID. More children have died by suicide as a result of being isolated from COVID. In addition, the virus has a 99.8% survival rate and mainly affects those with weakened immune systems and the elderly in nursing homes. If your teachers and administrators don't feel safe going to school, then they should resign and find some other way to make a living because COVID, like the flu, is going to be around for a while. Children need to be in school and with their peers where they can not only learn to read and write, but where they can learn to conflict resolution skills and make friends. Also, there are children in unstable home situations that would not get help they need by staying at home. I don't believe that your faculty and staff, many of them who have probably been to the stores, feel unsafe. I think they're using the virus as an excuse not to have to go to work in a way that benefits most of the kids. It's unfortunate that the taxpayers cannot ask for a refund or that Illinois does not have a voucher system in place. Otherwise, you'd be all out of a job. Sincerely, Gail Saunders." Citizen statement number 3 comes from Cheryl Rivera. And she states, "Good afternoon. I'm writing to express my concerns as a parent of the Woodland community. I have 4 boys in Woodland, an 8th grader, 1st grader, and twin kindergartners. All 4 boys have IEPs, and the youngest 3 have autism. Remote learning has been very challenging, to say the least, in my household. I've watched my children regress in ways that I cannot fathom. From being in daily routine of getting ready in the morning to waiting for the bus and looking forward to a great school day, to becoming socially isolated, losing skills of peer interaction, and protesting to leave our home or even get dressed. The lack of use of social life and skills that were taught in the classroom daily has hindered them. My middle school child has suffered migraine headaches weekly from so much screen time. Plus, he has expressed how disconnected he feels from his teachers and class from not knowing them personally. My once social butterfly is now moody and isolated. This is supposed to be an exciting year for him as he prepares to transition into high school. I know we are in a pandemic and safety of our students matters, but also does their education. Our teachers are great, but can only do so much through a screen. Let's put that CARES Act money to use and get these kids back in school. Sincerely, Cheryl Rivera." Number 4 is from Amanda Neal, and she writes, "So I have a concern about special interventions, aka reading, speech, and hearing teachers? Will the students still be getting the help following their IEP they need if they go back to hybrid? Schedules will change, and I understand that. However, I don't think there will be time or the teachers to teach hybrid. There are several teachers staying remote, so unless there is a mass hiring, then only other people qualified to watch the kids is a specialist. So that would mean those teachers would be watching the kids in the room instead of helping the kids that need it. I watched a kiddo that if he didn't get help with speech and reading, he would have failed first grade. So I just worry. I'm not trying to start anything, and I understand that no way is/will be perfect. But before tonight's vote, I just wanted to share a worry I have. Who knows? Maybe there is already an answer and I missed it. Thank you in advance, Amanda Neal. Number 5 is from Mona, and I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your last name right. I believe it's Paratham. And she says, may I ask a question to be taken to the board meeting today? My concern is, why are we rushing with the reopening, especially when vaccines will be available soon, but are not yet here for one and all? Can we wait until after spring break when more people can be vaccinated if they choose to do so, rather than in the next couple of weeks when teachers and public at large do not have access to vaccines? Thank you for your extraordinary efforts, Mona. Number 6 is from Jason and Lindsay Jasut. And they say they are parents of District 50 students since 2009. They have a former student in grade 11 and current students in grades 2, 6, and 8. It has been brought to our attention that part of the recommendation that the District 50 administrative team will be making as part of their hybrid learning plan to suspend tiered intervention services for some or all students. This suspension will occur so these staff members can quote unquote supervise students while they learn from teachers that will not be in the building. This is the same plan that you, the Board of Education, will be asked to vote for or against this evening. While we understand the challenges that school districts face as a result of a global pandemic, this resolution is completely unacceptable. The core purpose of a school is to meet the needs of students. Let us be clear that the key word here is students. How is this supporting students? We are both educators and completely dumbfounded that a group of educational professionals would think that it is justifiable to quote unquote just get the schools open. My child, like so many other children in District 50, relies on these services to grow and make progress. The implications of this are astounding and will have disastrous and negative impacts in the future of these children. There are significant, harmful, and lasting side effects on children that struggle with learning in one way or another. Aside from the fact that they can't keep up and access the core curriculum and instruction, there are countless psychological and emotional impacts. How can a group of administrators ethically propose this idea, let alone think it is even up for consideration? We hope that, as members of the Board of Education, the voice and representation of the community, you can see the significant flaws in this quote-unquote solution. For over a decade, we have read press releases and board minutes flouting quote-unquote fights for equity. Legal actions against Prairie Crossing Charter School for equity in funding, equity in hiring practices to have a staff that is more representative of the community and student population, embedding practices of equity through curriculum development such as social emotional learning programs and PBIS. Yet you are willing to take equitable access away from a group of students that would not be able to grow or access the core curriculum otherwise. Equity comes in more than shape, color, race, or creed. It comes in the form of ability to access education and content as well. It is time for us to hold our administrators accountable and ask them if they are touting quote-unquote equity for the show of it, or if they actually believe in true equity for every child in the district. In the past weeks, in inquiring about support and extensions for one of our children, and in parentheses, it says this time a need for enrichment and extension presented itself, as opposed to remediation and deficit repair. We heard some very shocking information. Associate Elementary Principal Kyle Block informed us that quote unquote math specialists were too busy working on curriculum mapping to work with students. That supporting students, quote unquote, was not a priority at this time, and they, quote unquote, could not be asked to work with kids in need. Yes, a District 50 administrator told parents that certified staff were too busy to support students. The solution presented to us was that recess supervisors could do it instead. Yes, you read that correctly. The school of thought would be best for children to, quote unquote, work with a non-certified staff member because the certified staff members just couldn't find the time. And just this morning, we received an email from elementary principal Ryan Wolberg stating that he was, quote unquote, happy to share that math specialists would begin supporting students the week of February 8th, which was apparently sent to appease us, knowing good and well that it wasn't actually going to happen. Hiding behind the pandemic in the guise of, quote unquote, the board approved this, and the teachers union, quote unquote, agreed to this. Again, we bring up the question, the ethics and integrity of the District 50 administration. While this seems personal to us because it directly impacts our child, and it is, however, at this time, it's more important than that. We are asking that you take into account all the parents and their children of this district that do not know any wiser that this is unacceptable, period. This doesn't happen in other districts. Don't let it happen here. Do your part to positively change the reputation of District 50. In the end, we are asking you, the Woodland Board, to do what you were elected to do, act in the best interest of children, equitably and ethically. Decisions that are made need to be made with greater scope of how they will actually impact students. Students need to be the priority here. While we know how much our children need and want to be back in person, if we cannot make that happen equitably and ethically, then we need to wait until we can. At least by continuing full remote instruction, we can continue to differentiate and meet unique needs of learners. Thank you for your time. Jason and Lizzie, Jason. And number 7 is from Brandon Moons, and he states, Dear school board members, thank you for your service to the Woodland community and for the example you set for safety by holding this board meeting remotely. During the school year, your words and actions have demonstrated a sincere dedication to safety and well-being for students, staff, and families of the community at large. Knowing the regard the board has for everyone's safety and well-being, it begs the question of why students and staff will be put at higher risk with in-person learning starting Tuesday. Holding this meeting remotely is the smart, safe choice, which leads the question of what is going to change over the weekend to make in-person interaction between students and staff an acceptable risk in just a few days' time. Starting Tuesday, students and staff will be having breakfast and lunch together without masks for periods of up to 30 minutes. The board and administrative team didn't feel it safe to meet tonight, even with masking and distancing protocols. Yet come Tuesday, staff and students are slated not to only spend an entire school day in the classrooms together, they will do so without masks for a breakfast period in the morning and then again at least 30 minutes during lunch. We know that no member of the board or administrative team has any intention of endangering any member of the Woodland community, but we feel that the pressure felt to return to in-person learning anytime in the next few weeks needlessly puts people at risk. The majority of Woodland families have chosen remote learning for the remainder of the school year out of a concern for the safety of their children and extended family members. I trust this board will continue to put the safety of everyone first and show the commendable leadership that they have all year by choosing to delay putting students in the buildings until everyone is fully vaccinated and the threat of COVID to our community is reduced. Thank you for your time and service and stay safe. And that was from Brandon and Jackie Moons. The next one is from a lady named Yvonne, and she says, good evening, my name is Yvonne and I live here in Gurnee. I have 2 daughters ages 12 and 16. My questions for the board is how many parents have withdrawn their students and how is this going to affect their budget? Also, I would like to know your position on this. And she gives a website, and the website is leading to the Illinois State Board of Education amendment to Title 23, Education and Cultural Resources, Subtitle A, Education, Chapter 1, State Board of Education, Personnel, and its culturally responsive teaching and leading standards for all Illinois educators. And then it's a 3-page document that has edits to it from the Illinois Board of Education. Let me just double check and make sure that there's no other comments that came in. And that looks like it's it.
Thank you, Laura. I know that's a lot of reading on your part, so we appreciate you doing that. And I know we had many more letters that actually came to the board that didn't come as citizen statements, so we're hoping that those of you who intended those to be citizen statements sent them to the right email address. Otherwise, they're considered board communication, and they are included in the board packet, but we did not have the understanding that you wanted those read aloud. So if we missed anybody that sent email to the board email address, please let us know. Email the citizen email. Laura, do you want to give that again in case at the end someone?
Sure. That email address is citizen@dist50.net.
Okay, so if you sent something to the board email address, but you intended it for citizen statements, you still have time for that to be read at the end of the board meeting. Anything further before we move forward in the agenda, Laura?
No, that was it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So next up we have the approval of the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in your board packet?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Got it.
Okay, roll call vote.
Sorry. Lizzie,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Carla,
Aye.
Joe.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay. Next up then, we're moving forward into action items. The first action item on your agenda for this evening is approval of return to school for groups 1, 2, and 3. Did we want, I know there's several motions associated with this action item. Did you want to start with a kind of an overview, Lori?
Sure. I do. I have a presentation just to
Okay.
sum some things up. So if you want to put that up there. I wanted to start by really thanking everyone as we navigate this health crisis. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our families who are continuing to work with us as we try to bring back our students and our staff safely. You've really been our partners over these last several months, and I know for those of you that are watching tonight, I appreciate your partnership in this and everything we've been through. I want to thank you for your patience and your support and your understanding, even when you may not agree with some of our recommendations or decisions. I also want to thank, obviously, all of our educators. This has been the hardest year in education that has occurred in over my over three decades of being in education. I had a great comparison. It was like we asked our teachers who were, lifelong piano players last March to say, you can't play piano anymore, and now today you have to be a master at the violin, and that's what they did, and that's what they continue to do every day. And I don't say it enough. I could never say it enough. I want to thank them for everything that they're doing. Our technology department is always working behind the scenes to support our staff and our students to get things up as quickly as they can. Our custodians and our maintenance crews are cleaning and disinfecting and getting all our signs up and getting everything ready for our staff and for our students when they return. Finally, our school and our district leaders who I talk to more than I talk to my husband on nights and weekends. They're amazing, and they continue to be innovative and try and think of what's best for how we could get our students back in school safely. So I'm just asking as I present this tonight, and as you as a board deliberate, that our community understands that we are truly doing everything we can in the best interest of our students, in the best interest of our families, in the best interest of our staffs, and we will continue to do that for thousands of children that you've entrusted in our care. I want to show you the current data. Here's where we're at right now. We do have some good news this month, and that is, as you know, the vaccine is on the horizon, and we've encouraged all of our staff to sign up, and we are hoping that that will be happening shortly. We're working closely with all of Lake County school districts. We're hopeful that we'll be receiving our first vaccine in the next 2 weeks. So that's really great news. That's something that we've been waiting for months. As you know, we anticipate our educators, we may be receiving the Moderna vaccine, so the second dose will be in 28 days from the first. And some of our clinical staff, so some of our occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech and language therapists, they've already received their first dose, and our nurses, so that's exciting. Second piece of good news is that the data line is trending down in Lake County right now. If you look at our comparisons, I've included the comparisons from December. So that's really great news. There's some significant differences between what happened last month and what's happening this month. Also, however, we still are at that, we are above that 14%, so we still are considered to be in the highest risk category. Effective today, North Region 9, which includes Lake and McHenry County, has met the criteria set by IDPH to move from Tier 1 to Tier 2 mitigations. And the test positivity rate in Region 9 is currently 7.2, calculated on a 7-day average, which is below the 8%. So a lot of great numbers that we're watching. There's still concerns, obviously, but it's been the first time in a long time we've been able to say that the numbers are going the way we want them to go. So that's great. Some background on what's going on here at Woodland. As you can see, we continue to have staff who have tested positive for COVID-19 and others who are quarantined due to the possible exposure to someone who tested positive. Currently, we have 50 staff who tested positive, 4 are currently in isolation, and we have 110 who have been in quarantine, and 9 of those are currently in quarantine. So that's where we are as of today. During the last board meetings, we had all 3 phases of our plan approved by the board. I thank you for that. However, the dates we did not vote on yet. So tonight I'm here to share information with you about those dates. One item I'm asking the board to vote on tonight is the schedule change that's necessary to switch to the hybrid model. Currently, all schools are on the remote learning schedule, so every family has the same schedule. This makes it much more convenient for families when children are in different schools to be on the same schedule. However, once we move to the hybrid schedule, we need to provide transportation to our students, and so in order to do that, we need to make that shift, which is based upon our 3-tiered bus system, and it also will allow for the social distancing on the bus. So depending on the board vote tonight, this will have to be adjusted as to which date we switch to the hybrid schedule. The next piece of information is the one that keeps all of us up at night, and that is our staffing concerns. Currently, as you know, there's a large shortage of substitutes at Woodland and statewide, and I'm very, very concerned about our staffing situation. We have many guest teachers or substitute teachers who have decided not to work this year or have decided not to work until they receive the vaccine. That's a nationwide shortage. With the expiration of the Family First Coronavirus Act, an employee may request a Family Medical Leave Act if they meet the minimum qualifications of such a leave to care for a family member with a serious condition. The leave is capped at 12 weeks and is unpaid unless the employee substitutes his or her accumulated sick leave, personal leave, or vacation leave for pay, depending on all or part of the leave. An employee may also request an accommodation under the American with Disabilities Act for his or her own serious health condition, but an accommodation under the American Disabilities Act is limited to the health condition of the employee, not of family members. Currently, we have 69 employees who our Human Resources Department is working with due to their request for a remote learning accommodation due to their own personal medical condition. We are referring to this as our Group 1 employee group. That includes 48 teachers, of which 23 of those teachers are homeroom teachers. We have to have supervision in these classrooms when the teacher is remote. In addition, we have 30 employees who requested a remote working accommodation due to the health of a family member. Such an accommodation is not required by the FMLA or the American with Disabilities Act, and we're referring to this group as Group 2. If Group 2 is allowed to work remotely, we will not be able to open school due to not having the in-person coverage to do so. One of the tasks that I was given was to determine how could we open school and how could we do that safely. So as a leadership team, we examined if we had the staffing capacity to open. There were days when I would have sat here and said, we do not have the staffing capacity to open. One thing we tried to do was to come up with any situation that would work. In order to open up all the phases, we would need to pull a majority of our support staff, such as our math specialists, our reading specialists, our reading recovery, our bridges, possibly our special education parapros, and in some cases our school librarians, to make it work. We can open, however, if we cannot find the correct amount of student supervisors, those support services, our tier 2 services we call them, would not occur because those staff members would have to be pulled from their current position to cover for a teacher who is remaining remote. Let me be clear, this is not something that our administrative team wanted to do or to consider, but we wanted to find a way that if we needed to do this, here was something else for the board to think about. It's my job to present you with all of those facts and all of those options. Given this option, it is possible to bring back our special education classrooms, our kindergarten, and our first grade without touching the special services. That is the reasoning for the additional motions that are before you tonight. However, this means that the remainder of the district, which is our 2nd through 8th graders, would remain remote until it can be staffed properly, which would mean most likely after spring break, when hopefully staff would receive the 2nd dosage of the vaccine, and then more would be able to return to in-person instruction. So the next page is talking about the options. So again, I was asked to give you options from coming back, which is option 1, to the first option, back to if we pushed everything back when everybody was fully vaccinated. So during the December 17th board meeting, the 3-phase plan was approved, and tonight we're working on the dates for that plan. I'm proposing 4 options for the board's consideration. Option 1 is the tentative option discussed at previous board meetings, with staff returning, starting our special education staff coming back on February 2nd and then rolling in, as you can see on the chart. Option 2 is moving the first date back after the staff has the opportunity to have their first vaccine. Option 3 is starting our instructional structured early childhood classes on February 16th, kindergarten and first grade on February 23rd, and the remainder of our classes after spring break, when hopefully staff will have both, the remainder of the staff will have both doses of the vaccine. Option 4 is bringing all students back after spring break beginning March 29th. If the board chooses options 1 or 2, our specialist and tier 2 services would be impacted and utilized to cover those staff who are working remotely. If the board approves options 3 or 4, we hope, depending on staff numbers who return, we would not have to do that. Other considerations for you as you're making your decision tonight, you can see the numbers across the district of how many families chose remote and how many families chose in person. Overall, we're looking at about 43% who chose in person and 57% who chose remote. The numbers in parentheses are the numbers of actual students who chose in-person learning at each school. The division of students, here's how we're looking to divide up the students. We took all the families who chose in person and we did the most even division we could by 1/3. And this included keeping families together that were in all buildings. So we had to look at all of those comparisons. As you saw from the previous slide, when we looked at individual classes, there might be some classes where there are only 2 or 3 students in some weeks. This allowed us to look at how we could benefit from some increased time with some students who may really, really need it. We have some homeless students, we have students who have special education needs, second language learners, and students who have not engaged instructionally that teachers or principals may be contacting to attend school more often. This is in alignment with the groups that Dr. Maychek referred to earlier that we worked with over our winter break, and also with the Illinois State Board of Education's recommendations. The next slide is just a calendar of the 3-week rotation to remind people.
Lori,
yes.
I'm sorry. Can you go back to that?
This one?
Well, the one before that too.
Sure.
So what's the total number?
Did
you in the parentheses, you have a number for each building. Did you total up the
total number that want to be back in person?
Yeah, the raw number.
I'd have to total up those numbers right now. I didn't total.
Okay.
I don't have.
I'm totaling them up right now.
Okay.
Okay.
On there. It's 2,307.
Okay. And then the next slide Oh, before we move off of that slide, Jennifer, did you have a question about it?
No, I just was going to give you the number because I was adding it up.
Oh, okay. I did have a question about this as it relates to transportation. If it's only less than 43%, would it be possible to keep the same schedule for all the buildings? Or maybe that's a question I can ask you at the end. I don't want to interrupt your presentation, but that's where my mind was going with that when I saw this number. But you don't have to answer now. And then my other question is on the next slide, the acronyms, what are?
Oh, I'm so sorry. The acronyms for kindergarten, early childhood, and then our Woodland Early Learning Program for students. The acronyms, the A through GOM, that's the division of alphabet by how we would be dividing students. I should have explained.
Oh, okay. I thought that was an acronym. Thanks.
Yeah, so that's how we would be dividing students with the third.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the next page is just an example of the calendar and how students would be rolling in on that 3-week rotation. Remember, that's just 1st through 8th grade. Kindergarten is going Tuesday through Friday half days. We're going to be sending out information to families, but this gives us an idea of how the groups are broken down by color and alphabetically into thirds. So again, it's Tuesday through Friday, and Mondays would be a remote learning day. Next slide, I just wanted to share a comparison with you to show you some capacity comparisons. Now that we have our in-person numbers, we were able to take a look at this. This chart depicts the numbers, and I just used our middle schools and our intermediate schools examples compared from last year to this year. So as you can see, the numbers are much less. However, you can also see that we are not able to bring back all the students at one time, even if our teachers all were vaccinated, due to the hundreds of students being in a building at the same time. Our large grade level centers are still large, even when we break them down into halves or into thirds. So it does give us a good idea of here's what we had last year and here's what we'd be looking at now if we break it down, but it's still larger than most districts would be if they were bringing back all of their students. So some possible changes and reminders. Once we move into hybrid, every Monday is Aurora Monday with remote learning for all. All students would be virtual, and staff may teach remotely or they may teach in their classrooms. We're going to be doing some additional cleaning on those days and disinfecting if necessary. At any time, we may experience a staff shortage due to lack of teachers, due to a quarantine. So all families really need to be prepared to shift to full remote learning with, unfortunately, very little notice. And we will always continue to seek guidance, and I meet weekly with the Lake County Health Department on what's happening there and their guidance. The next sheet we talked about months ago, but I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention. We know it's really important, and we want our staff and our families to have correct information regarding data and cases once we return in person. So we're going to be utilizing the Woodland dashboard so people can check in every day to see if there's active cases, how many students are placed in quarantine, active staff cases, and staff placed in quarantine. This will be updated daily, and hopefully we will allow our families to see some real-time data in our staff. And it also starts maybe some false information from spreading. Other districts that you'll hear, oh, there's X number of cases in this district, and then when you look up on, when you find out that's really not the case. So we really want to make sure that we have accurate, transparent information out to our families. If it's here, we're going to be telling you about it, and we'll have that for you.
Lori, can I ask a question about this while you're on it? Where it says exposure within school or district, that number will only represent people who are quarantined based on our indication that they need to quarantine, not because they have, like people will come back from a vacation and decide to quarantine on their own, or if the exposure was outside of the school district, it won't be reported.
This is just what we're exposed within the school district. So like you said, if somebody was exposed due to being at a basketball game, that would not be reported on here. This is really just to let parents know what's happening in the schools.
Okay, so it's different data from the previous slide where we reported staff cases, which didn't necessarily, were not necessarily exposure in the school. right? We reported a total number of cases, but that was not school exposure.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, good question. So what's next? We continue to monitor the conditions in our zip codes in the county and in our schools, as you can see on the Woodland dashboard. Tomorrow, I'll be sending out an update to all staff and families on the decision that's made tonight. This PowerPoint will be on our website. The video of the meeting is also available, so if any stakeholder isn't able to watch it tonight, they could watch it virtually. So now I'm happy to take any questions before we get into the motions.
Lori, can we go back to the slide with all 4 options real quick, just to look one more time?
There's also a copy of this. You have it in your packet. Sure, go ahead, Corey.
No, I just wanted to take a look at it one more time, just look at the dates.
Oh, sure. So again, if you have any questions on these dates, it's really the reason for option 3, that March 30th date, is in order to try and get our staff and have their second vaccination in. Again, there's no guarantee that it's going to happen. You know, we can't control what's happening with the vaccine. We can't control what's happening with quantity and distribution, but that was the purpose in trying to give you some options on having that happen. Again, I think an important reminder is the first 2, we would have to pull our specialists. We're not going to be pulling special education minutes from anybody, so we're not pulling like our speech paths or you know, occupational therapists or anything like that. We're talking about non-special education personnel, but who do work with one-on-one or with small groups of students that have been identified in need. If we do options 3 or 4, we don't need to do that, hopefully.
Lori, can you speak to, I know option 3 and 4 are related to, I mean, they're obviously dependent on vaccination. And like you said, a lot of that stuff's out of our control. Mm-hmm. And I know that the hope of those would be that specialists and such would not need to be pulled. Can you speak to, we know that those specialists would be being pulled to cover classrooms of staff members that qualify for ADA accommodation. At what point would, if vaccination is available and those staff members who have qualified for ADA accommodation, for what amount of time would those specialists need to be used in order to be able to cover those classrooms if some of those people that qualify for ADA can come back after vaccination? So is that those people have to be used to the end of the school year? Is that those people have to be used until a certain time frame?
Sure. So there's a few factors in there. Number 1, we're doing everything we can we've been doing it the whole time, trying to increase our substitute pool, our guest teacher pool. We're also, tonight there's an approval for the student supervisor position. So we're trying to hire people just to be student supervisors, so we don't have to pull other staff. It depends on if people come back pending doctor's notes that say they can come back after they've had 2 vaccines, and they've waited the extra 2 weeks. We have both going on. We have some staff whose doctors have already told us, you know, they can't come back. They should not come back this year. They need to work remotely. And we've had others that have said they'll be able to return back after the vaccine. So it's really both ways. So it's difficult to say exactly. Our goal would be to get student supervisors in there, to get substitute teachers in there. Our last defense is we want to pull our reading and our math specialists and our Bridges teachers and those staff. We know how valuable those programs are. I'm not recommending we do that. I just needed to give options of what would happen.
Lori, with the Lake County metrics that are out there, how would any of this be impacted by those metrics?
Sure. So I think number 1, as we watch the trend line, like we said, right now it's going down. However, if we start to see a steep decline, and I don't mean like the 1 to 2%, I mean like what we saw recently where it just shot up, or we really see it going straight back up, then that's the time when I would come forward and I would say we need to go back to remote. We have to, those decisions, and that happened to many other districts this whole year where they were in and out the entire time because of metrics. We've been out, but if we saw that was happening, and we tend to see, like we're like a microcosm of what's happening out in society. So once we can tell when it's starting to go up, because that's when we have our own staff cases that start to go up. And so we're living it just like everybody else is, and we're like, okay, we can't, we wouldn't be able to stay open. So, we would watch that, and if it's still going up, we would, I would ask to go remote. I would say we need to go remote. It could also happen in a building where we may have a few cases in a building where I need to say, based upon my consultation with the Lake County Health Department, they consider this potential exposure, it's a potential spread, we need to close this building.
Yeah, Lori, what's the terminology they use for outbreak? What's the definition and terminology for that one?
For a potential outbreak in a school?
Yeah, for like closing a school. What's the numbers again? Like, isn't there like a
school? So for example, if there's over 2, then we start talking about what's considered an outbreak, but we consult with them because, again, depending on our size, I'm going to use our middle school as an example. If we had one down in C wing that was exposed and one over, in D, it depends. Whereas our primary school, which is a smaller school, they may consider that an exposure and we need to close the school down. So that's a decision that we make with the Lake County Health Department.
Yeah, I remember in the beginning it was like if there were 2 and that's like boom, it's like closed. But yeah, I think they've changed the policies.
So any other questions before the board moves on to the motions?
I guess I just have one question before we move on, and it's about testing. The district's plan for testing employees for kids. I mean, how are we? I know that we're not offering testing, but are we offering help finding a place for testing, or is there any way that when we open school, how will we know if someone's not bringing COVID on the first day?
Sure. So we're not offering testing here. We are our nurses, and there's multiple testing sites in Lake County that we can easily refer families to, and that's what we would do. Every staff member and every student has to self-certify every day. So students have a lanyard that they're going to be showing when they get. They have to show the bus driver, and then when they get off the bus, they have to show us that every parent has self-certified every day. We've also purchased thermometers. So if any family says, I can't do it, I don't have a thermometer, we have thermometers for families. Our staff has been self-certifying for months, and they will continue to do that every day. And if they have symptoms, then they need to not report in person. But that's what we've been doing. But we're not doing the testing here on site.
Other questions?
Before the board moves into the motions, I do want to state and I said it during the presentation, I want to be transparent in all of your votes so there's no confusion. The first motion, if it's voted that that group of staff work remotely, then we can't open for now. So I just don't want to be confused. If there's a motion regarding staff, the second group returning, and there's all the motions for the dates, but I just want to be clear that we do not have the capacity that if we allow those staff to work remotely, if we allow that accommodation to open.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. I'm just trying to look at the exact motion, how I wrote it. So the first motion has to do with—
Talking about motion number 1.
I have to find it.
Okay.
The first motion, which has to do with the group working remotely, that's the group that if the board votes to approve those people to work remotely, then we cannot open right now. because we do not have, even if we pulled all the specialists, we don't have capacity to cover those classrooms. We can't cover an additional, I think it's 21 classrooms.
Okay, any questions about that, board members? We have several motions in our packet. The first motion, to Lori's point, is a motion to approve a remote work accommodation for those employees with an immediate family member who lives in the same household as the employee and who has a verifiable underlying health condition or is immune compromised or is in a designated high-risk group and must avoid exposure for COVID-19 as determined in writing by a physician. This accommodation will only be available until the end of the 2020-2021 school year. Can I get a motion to approve this item? So I will make the motion. I move to approve a remote work accommodation for those employees with an immediate family member who lives in the same household as the employee and who has a verifiable underlying health condition or is immune compromised or is in a designated high-risk group and must avoid exposure to COVID-19 as determined in writing by a physician. This accommodation will be available until the end of the 2020-2021 school year. Can I get a second?
A second.
I'm sorry.
I said I second the motion.
Okay, thank you. So we have a first and a second. Do we have discussion? I think my only concern with this motion is, can it be amended to, and Lori, I don't know if you talked about this with the attorneys, but could it be amended to when the vaccine is available to all staff? Or does it have to be to the end of the school year?
It doesn't have to be till the end of the school year.
So I'm definitely in favor of giving some latitude to those employees that have family members that are at a higher risk to adverse events if they were exposed to COVID-19. You know, as we all know, we're learning more about this virus every day. We now have several different mutants or variants out there that we're also learning more about. So I think it's prudent for us to be extremely cautious with unnecessarily exposing people in a high-risk group to this virus. But I would want to amend this to be until the vaccine is available to all staff.
Lori, isn't it they look at those accommodations once there's a change in the work environment? Is that like the kind of terminology that's used?
Say that again.
For like, we're looking at it later on. It's like, there has to be like a major change in the work environment. That's when they can look at the accommodations, right?
Yes, for some of the, it depends on what the doctor's writing. So for some of them, it'll, you know, pending the vaccine and then the 2 weeks, you know, after the vaccine. And for others, it'll say to the end of the school year. Or to your point, Corey, some doctors have written it that way too.
Okay. And then the vaccine being available, is that change then, I'm guessing?
But again, just to be clear, there are, you know, some that the vaccine isn't going to solve, that they still are going to be out.
Right.
Would we be able to move forward with options 3 and 4 if we approve this?
No. I shouldn't say no. I hadn't thought about it from when we get the vaccine.
With option 4, it allows time. Yeah, go ahead, Lori. Sorry.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, with option 4, I think the purpose, the intention of that is to allow time for our staff and teachers to be vaccinated. So can those two, components be combined?
Sure. The reason that I wrote option 4 was because I knew some board members felt that, they wanted to wait until staff was vaccinated. So that's why that's on there. I have to say, I feel that we need to get some kids back in school. I'm concerned about, I'm very concerned about our staff's health. I'm concerned about our special education students that have not had the instruction that they need. So I'm looking at it from both ways, but I'm concerned.
I mean, I was going to say this when we talk about, I guess it's prudent if we talk about it in this motion. If we look at option 3 and 4, we have students that will be in school 8 days. They will actually attend school 8 days before the end of the school year with the 3-week rotation. And for us to say that we've provided them an in-person school experience for 8 days of 174 school days, that's not much. And 4 of those days for group 3 are the last week of school, which is not anybody that works in a school. The last week of school is not your best educational teaching experiences. Not to any fault of any teacher at all, so don't take that wrong. It's not. It's just what happens in an elementary school or in an elementary district, 2 days before it's summer. So that group of, those students are really not, that experience is going to be very limited in 4, 3, and 4 with students that aren't starting until April.
I guess my question is, again, once the vaccine is available and all teachers have had access to the vaccine, whether they get it or not, that's their choice, but they've all had access to it, why wouldn't we go back full time? Why would we stay on a hybrid schedule once the vaccine is available?
Sure. Well, my answer to that would be the children still won't have the vaccine. So we still have to keep the 6-foot distancing, and we still have to wear masks. We still have to do all those things. So because the children won't be vaccinated, we still have to follow all the guidance that in order to keep everybody distanced and safe. So that's why we'd still have to stick with the hybrid.
Because we still have to follow phase 4, like in-school guidelines of capacity numbers and stuff, right? Yeah.
But we don't know that for sure. We're guessing that right now. We don't know that for sure.
Doesn't phase 4 have capacity limits on classrooms, capacity limits on rooms in the building, right? That will only change if we move to phase 5.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't. Like I said, we don't know that right now. Mm-hmm. We're guessing.
Right. We do have to offer remote all year as an option for parents. So no matter what, we can't, even if parents wanted to come back, we still have to offer that. So there would still be some students that would be remote.
And that's based on Illinois law?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And what law is that?
I'd have to, I can find it for you. I don't have it off the top of my head, but basically we were given the direction or the guidance that
I think we're going to see a lot of changes.
Sure, we were given the direction.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We were given the direction, the guidance that for this year, for the remainder of this year, we have to offer remote as an option for parents. I'd have to find the exact wording, but that's what,
Yeah, can you? Because
I do know that we have many.
Where's that coming from? Is that guidance or law? Because there's a difference.
Coming from the Illinois State Board of Education.
Okay.
So I'd have to look.
Guidance and laws are 2 different things. So.
Right. But I also know that we have many families that want to stay remote for the remainder of the year, even if we came back in person. They're still concerned because the children aren't vaccinated.
And I would be okay with continuing the remote option too. Yeah.
Yeah, right now the majority of the parents have chosen remote for their kids. So I guess that would be, well, that's not the motion. So I'll wait.
Right. I think we have to address motion 1 and see where motion 1 goes.
Right, because what's really happening right now is we are speculating. What's before us is what's before us. And what we're doing is we're speculating about what's going to happen when a vaccine comes and all of that. That's not what's in this motion. What's in this motion is clear, and that's what we should be voting on or having a discussion on. It should be nothing outside of that.
So I want to amend the motion to say until the vaccine is available. Are you amenable to that, Renee? Since you have the first, I have the first, and you have this.
I am amenable to that if we're going to amend it.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
I'm sorry, Jennifer.
No.
Renee.
Yes.
David.
You're on mute, David.
No.
Corey.
Yes.
Carla.
Aye.
Joe.
No.
Lizzie.
No.
Motion fails 3-4.
Okay, next up we have several options. I'll let one of you choose one that strikes your fancy.
I move to approve the district's. Okay. Is it easier to say which option and then I can read it? Does that help people? Because they're all very wordy and you got to kind of follow along. So I'm recommending the district or moving to approve option 2 with the district to switch to the hybrid schedule February 2nd with instructional structured early childhood and the WELE students return in person beginning February 16th, with kindergarten and first grade students returning February 23rd, second, fourth, and sixth grade returning March 2nd, and third, fifth, seventh, and eighth grade students returning March 9th, 2021.
Motion fails for lack of a second. Is there another motion to be entertained for this item?
I move to approve the district switch to the hybrid schedule on February 2nd, 2021 with instructional, structured, early childhood, and WHEEL students who choose to return to in-person learning will begin on February 16th, 2021. Kindergarten and first grade students will return on February 23rd, 2021. Second, fourth, and sixth grade students will turn on March 30th, and third, fifth, seventh, and eighth grade students return on April 6th, 2021.
Which number plan was that? Was that
3.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
I feel that our most important, like, we need to get our students, particularly our instructional, structured, early childhood and wheel students, need to be back in school, because much of the work that is done with those students is not as hard as the teachers' work and the therapists' work. It is not the same remotely, and many of those students really rely on the therapies that are provided in our schools. And if we want to talk about equity, we have many families who don't get therapy outside of school, can't afford private therapies, yet their children need them. And the schools are the place that those are provided. So I feel like it is vital that those students are in person as soon as possible. So it is really that group of students that pushes my decision in every case, is that they really need to be there. Those who are who are comfortable enough, or who have realized that that's the best place for their child.
So
And what was
I
that
guess,
number again, Laura? Oh,
Option 3.
no. Can you put up your slide to say how many parents in those groups
Yeah.
opted into in-person learning?
Sure, has it, so it'll take a second.
I thought it was like 40-some%, maybe 43.
Oh, how many chose in person? What the
Mhm.
it chose in person? 42.62.
42.
So for that
So-
group, did you break it down according to the motion though?
I didn't break it down according to the motion.
Okay.
I'm going by school.
So Carla,
Right.
can I just say something briefly?
Oh yeah.
Because
go
I don't
ahead.
have a lot of time, because I did just leave, and I'm dealing with my family issue or whatever, and I don't want to seem insensitive. But let me just say this. I agree, Jennifer. Kids, especially the younger ones, need to be in school. But at what cost? Because here it is. We just said that teachers should go back whether they're vaccinated or not. I didn't say that, but that's what the board said. Now we're saying children need to go back to school, even though 57% of the parents have said, I want my kids to be remote until we can figure out what's going on. What are we doing? Who are we trying to appease? What are we rushing back for? I'm about to bury my grandmother from COVID. If we think this is not serious, let me tell you, it is. What are we rushing back for? We're putting people at risk for no apparent reason. Let's make this make sense. If the parents are telling us, I don't want to do this, we know the vaccine is coming. We know we're going to get our kids, our teachers vaccinated. What are we doing? I just don't understand. So somebody please make it make sense to me. I'll wait.
I can't tell if David's talking, but you're on mute, David.
Sorry, I was discussing this with my wife. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the question that's been posed. If we go to tier 4, how much does that push us back from tier 3? Does that give us time to get more teachers inoculated here?
Yes. With probably both the first and the second shot.
So the goal with the March 30th date was the hopes, again, that our teachers would be vaccinated by that time. And remember, as we all know, it's the vaccination plus 2 additional weeks.
And keep in mind though, when you get the first vaccine, the first shot, first dose, there's a percentage of immunity that follows, and then the second dose, theoretically should be up to over 90% immunized from the virus. So it's a graduated process with which is why you have 2 doses of it, since our bodies have never seen this particular virus before.
I mean, this is a real quandary. I agree with what Jennifer says. If we're going to bring the kids back for 8 days, what's the point there, but yet we want everyone to be safe. So this is a big quandary that we're going to have to deal with.
But is it really a quandary if the parents have already told us what they want?
But
the majority of parents have said, I don't want to send my kids back right now. That's why we send out these surveys, right? Or are we sending them out just for optics and we're like, F you, we're not going to listen?
So what about the 42% who said they do want their children back? Or do they
that's
not?
The minority.
You're not the majority.
They do matter. They do, but that's the minority. That's not the majority.
Yeah. Do we know how many in special ed, the group that we're targeting, are returning? Because that's not actually on the survey. It wasn't broken down that way. Did you break it down that way, Lori?
I do have it. I can get it for you. I'll have Lene send it to me right now, but I have it. I just don't have it on the screen.
Okay. I'm just a big proponent. I think we should exercise extreme caution. That's me. That's what I believe. So I have to vote my conscience on this. So I think it'd be important to know, are we really, by voting, are we really getting special ed kids back? And isn't there another way to do it now that if it's a split on how many special ed kids and early childhood kids are in person versus remote, and that's going to change the quality of the instruction for both, really, is that the best option? Because everything we're hearing is that once you go into this hybrid model, that's going to change the quality of instruction for the kids that are remote. That's going to change the quality of instruction for the kids that are in person. So it's going to, if people think it's not working now, it's going to work less in this model. Am I wrong on that one, Lori? Maybe I'm being too simplified.
I don't understand your question. I'm sorry.
So on previous presentations on these models, it was the understanding I got was when we go into the hybrid method, there's going to be some kids in the class in this classroom A, for instance, 70% of those, according to the survey, one of the surveys that we looked at, some of them the majority are going to be remote. There's going to be a handful of kids inside the classroom, and the teacher is going to teach to both wearing a mask, right? Yes. Is that not correct? Versus now she's teaching remotely to everybody, or the teacher, and I don't want to be sexist to say she, but the teacher is teaching remotely to all the kids without a mask. And but that's not going to be the case when we go into a hybrid model. Is that correct?
That is correct.
First of all, okay. So in this model, if we're talking now, how many kids would we expect to be, in the classroom? And I know it's not broken down according to these options, but if we're looking at we have instructional, structured, early childhood, special education. Now, if you break that down into the various classrooms, what would you,
sure.
How many would you expect to be?
I had them, and thank you, Dr. Wells sent it to me.
Okay.
We have 49% of our self-contained classrooms have opted to be in person, and our wheel classrooms, we had 54% that opted to be in person. That's the classroom down at our primary school.
Okay.
It's about 104 students in person total for our instructional students.
Lori, what would it look like for how many actual kids in person? Is it like 5 or 6, 3 or 4?
For classroom,
Yeah,
for special education, or for regular education?
both. We could do both sides.
Okay, so for special education, it's, the numbers, this classrooms start out with much smaller numbers.
Right.
So, and those students would also be going Tuesday through Friday every day.
Okay.
So those numbers would be, every classroom may be different, so I can't give you the exact number, but we know it's approximately 49%. So we're looking at around 50%. In the regular classrooms, because we've divided it up into thirds, we have some that have, 2 in one section, 1 in another section. We were up to like 8 in one section. So that's where we had some that had 0 that were coming that week. That's where we were going to try and fill in those students that needed to be back in school. So it went anywhere from 0 to 8.
Okay.
Thank you.
In each class per week. And you said the remote kids now, instead of going 5 days a week, they would go 4 days a week. Is that correct?
I'm sorry.
Is that still the
Everybody
that was
on Mondays. So even if you went in person, you'd still be remote on Mondays. We'd have Roar Mondays. And then if it was your week, then you'd come in Tuesday through Friday.
okay? I really like the idea of the Roar, Monday, but
We liked it because it allows us an extra day to get some cleaning done and some disinfecting done if we needed to.
Carla, going off a little bit what you said earlier. So you were saying, so they would be split, the teacher would have to split between teaching the kids at home, teaching the kids in class. There would be the rotation every 3 weeks. And then the kids who are in person would really only have interactions with the remote kids on that Monday during Roar, because it'd be difficult. I mean, I can only speak from some experience, but it'd be difficult to connect the remote kids and the in-person kids, right? I'm just trying to think it through.
One of the reasons we wanted to do that, and that was part of the plan that the board's already approved, was we also wanted a day where everybody was remote again, so that the teacher, when she needed the whole class remote, she could do some things with them together as a whole class remote. Because it will look, again, in all full transparency, it looks, for those of you that have done hybrid, it looks very, very different than a regular classroom. A child's going to be sitting at their computer, even when they're in person and the teacher's there, they'll be spaced out from their peers. A lot of the things that, they were used to are going to be different.
so when we say, oh, kids are not, when you hear the complaint, kids are not interacting with their peers because they're not in school, they still won't be interacting with their peers. They'll just be sitting in the same classroom 6 feet apart once every 3 weeks. Is that correct?
I think
because they can't interact with their teacher. They got to stay 6 feet away from the teacher. They got to stay 6 feet away from their peers, and they have to, so it's not like they're going to, it's not a normal day. So when people are complaining that kids are not getting the interaction, they're still not going to have interaction. We still got to maintain that social distance. Correct?
Yeah, I think interaction.
Am I missing something?
No, I think interaction looks different. Yes, you're right. Like, the students still need to maintain 6 feet of distance, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't interact with their peers. It's just a different type of interaction, I guess. Like seeing kids in the school, like, it's just different. It's not that they talk to them, but it's at a 6 feet distance and it's with masks on. So just as like we as adults can still interact with others in spaces and maintain yes, it's definitely different with, it's going to be different for kids.
And then I think someone had brought up in a previous meeting, and I think by some of the emails we've gotten to the board email address, they brought up the fact that, with the teaching foreign language or the, bilingual classes, how do you do that with the mask on? Have you worked through that issue?
Dual language classrooms. That issue was brought up by some parents when you're teaching a second language through dual language. And as you know, like I said, it will be with a mask on in the classroom, just like we've always talked about. None of those mitigation strategies have changed. That will be happening.
So how do we account for teaching in that a foreign language in that circumstance? Has that been worked out? Have you guys talked through that?
We've definitely talked about it, but I mean, what we have control over is it's going to look like, a teacher with a mask on in person teaching. It's not optimal by any means.
Mm-hmm.
No, none of these, and that's the most difficult part of this whole thing, is none of this is optimal. Full remote's not optimal, hybrid's not optimal. There's a lot that's not optimal. So I think that's definitely an example of it's not an optimal situation. The teachers will be wearing their masks and the students will be wearing their masks and they won't be able to see. We talked about some options of having, you can get a mask that has somebody's lips. We did some of that with our speech and language pathologists. So there are some creative strategies out there that we can use to help with that, and we've looked into those.
You guys, I'm sorry to interrupt. Carla, I'm sorry. I do have to go. I'm sorry, but I just got here and I do need to go take care of some stuff. If you all are to vote,
go ahead and vote before you leave, Renee. If there's no other questions, we can go ahead and vote.
Okay.
So on the table is option 3. Motion made by Lizzie, second made by Jen.
Mm-hmm.
Correct? Okay. Just want to make sure I was
Are
right.
there other questions? Otherwise, we'll call the question. Roll call vote, please.
Renee?
No.
David? Do you want to unmute yourself, please?
No.
Corey?
No.
Carla?
No.
Joe?
No.
Lizzie?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Motion fails 2-5.
Is there another motion to be considered?
I believe it was the last motion, Carla, but I don't have it in front of me.
There's 2 motions left.
I move to approve the district switch to the hybrid schedule on March 15th with instructional structured early childhood and WELE students who choose to return in-person learning begin on March 30th, 2021. Kindergarten and first grade students return on April 6th, 2021. Second, fourth, sixth, and sixth grade students return on April 13th, 2021. And third, fifth, seventh, and eighth grade students return on April 20th, 2021.
Second.
Can I ask a question about this?
Yes, please.
If this passes and it moves forward, where does that leave us if vaccination is, because I understand that this is in the hopes that people are vaccinated by then. That is an unknown, right? It's not within our control. Does that mean that if this passes that this is what we're sticking with, or if vaccination is delayed, does this get delayed?
I think we as a board have the ability to make amendments to this.
I also have a question.
I'm really in favor. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, because I was just going to repeat the same thing I said. I'm in favor once the vaccine is fully available that we can work out something, and hopefully it'll get better guidance from the state on this as well. But go ahead. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, that was my question too, about if if the teachers are vaccinated and the vaccination plan works, hopefully as it should, does that change the timeline at all? That was my only question.
It could. I think we have to stay open to it. Just like if we would go into a hybrid situation and some students are in person learning and there's an outbreak in the school or outbreak in the classroom, and or the teacher gets infected and they would have to go back to remote learning. I think this is a year of keeping flexible and keeping up with the progression of this pandemic and making the best decisions that we can make given the data at the time. And I think that's the best we can do with this uncertainty.
I agree.
Is there a way in which we're defining available to staff? I mean, is it that because right now, like the state has moved into 1B, right? But there are still people in 1A who have not been able to be vaccinated. So when I ask that question, it's about how are we defining accessibility? And if that accessibility is determining these are our best guess of accessibility, right? Like that's the best we've got right now that we think that will be available, but how are we defining that?
I think that goes beyond the reach of the motion.
I'm not saying it, I'm asking a question so that I understand what we're saying, that the motion, this option is based on staff having accessibility to vaccination, right? That was what Lori explained that's why this option is on the table. So I just want to understand, what are we meaning by accessibility to vaccination? And is it once they move to next phase, then we consider that everyone has had accessibility, because everyone could move to the next phase, and we have staff members who have been unable for whatever reason to get a vaccination, and they say, well, wait, I haven't been vaccinated.
Well, no, I would say accessibility is the fact that we know Lori and the other superintendents in Lake County are working to develop a closed dispense or vaccination site for educators in Lake County. So once those mass vaccination clinics have taken place, then that would be accessibility. If our staff and educators choose not to be vaccinated, then that's perfectly an acceptable choice for them, but they would still have had accessibility to the vaccine. That's how I would be willing to define it, even though, to Renee's point, that's outside the scope of this motion. But to me, that's where, if we know that we've hosted these clinics and they've had the opportunity to be vaccinated, then to me, that's sufficient.
That's what I'm looking for, Carla. That helps me understand where the thought process is of how we're looking at that and defining accessibility.
I think when we look at the spirit of the motion, what we're looking at is we're trying to make sure that as many educators in our District 50 has had the ability to be vaccinated as possible. That's what the spirit of this motion is about. That's what the administration, that's what Lori has been working on, to try to get as many people vaccinated as possible. And it's true, like Carla said, if they decide they don't want to get vaccinated for whatever their reason is, religious belief, whatever their belief is, that's on them. But we've given them the ability to be vaccinated.
I agree.
So is David speaking with us, or is he
so.
speaking
I don't know.
outside of?
I just say this: the EEOC has held that an employer has the option of forcing their employees to get vaccinated.
Yes,
I
they have.
want to take that step with our teachers, but that's always an option too.
We're not doing that.
Right.
Okay.
No, we don't want to do that.
Okay. I know that's some that's happening in some places.
Yeah, not our. Yeah, that's a whole another conversation. But no, I would not be in favor of that, and that's outside the scope of this motion. Are there any other questions or comments? Lori's shaking her head too. So
That's a personal choice. I'm not doing that.
I just thought I'd bring it up because it is happening out there. So
No.
anything further? Otherwise, we'll call the question. Roll call vote.
I'm sorry. David,
yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Carla,
Aye.
Joe,
Yes.
Lizzie,
Yes.
Jennifer,
No.
Started later.
Renee.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-1.
You know, I do still believe we have the opportunity to improve upon the remote learning in these remaining days of remote learning as we're waiting for our staff to have access to the vaccine. You know, we've had some concerns about specialists not being available to students. We still have the opportunity to improve on special education where we can. We do have to continue to think outside of this being a normal situation and try to go above and beyond to provide as much of a positive remote learning experience as possible with differentiating education where we can. So, you know, I think we really just have to do that as much as possible. If you need resources from the board, I think you have to ask for those, Lori, but I just, you know.
We will continue to do, I mean, the teachers again have done an amazing job. They'll continue to do an amazing job. We'll continue to be innovative. You'll see in a little bit, our summer school program is completely revamped and vamped up. So we're always going to be looking for those things. So absolutely.
And I think we'll see a lot of movement on vaccine production in these next few weeks, and even how much vaccine will start to be released. I know more is coming, you know, a little bit percentage more is coming to the state, you know, so you'll see more. I know we're not fully utilizing the vaccine at the state level the way that we should be. You know, there's a lot of things to be improved upon. I just think we have to know that and just stay flexible. It's a pandemic, and also we got these new variants out there that we know of. What, about 4 different variants that may make our life a little more difficult as well. But there's probably going to be more to come on variants, because that's what viruses do. They mutate. Well, especially messenger RNA viruses. That's what they do. They mutate. So, you know, this is not ordinary times. I just want to keep everybody safe so we can live through it. I'm staying at home as much as possible, so I wouldn't want to wish, you know, death on anybody. So moving forward, are there any other things anyone else want to say about this vote before we move forward? Next up, then, we have a motion to approve approval of a non-resident annual tuition charge. Can I get a motion to approve the establishment of the non-resident tuition pupil charge of $14,087 per year.
So moved.
Second.
Excuse me. Did we get a second?
Lizzie, second.
Oh, thank you. Discussion? Roll call vote?
Corey,
Yes.
Carla,
Aye.
Joe,
Yes.
Lizzie,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Renee, David.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
So we have, the next motion is approval of the classroom supervisor positions. Can I get a motion to approve the addition of classroom supervisor positions for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
With the follow-up, with the vote of pushing that timeline back, this classroom supervisor position is like, what's the extent of, you think, the need as it I mean, not about the approval of the job description, but the need for supervision as more staff members would be able to come back.
We still need it. We absolutely still need it. We, if we can post it, we'll post it tomorrow. We have training and we need to do with these people, so that's going to take a while. Dr. Kiefer's put together a really great extensive training program with some other departments, so that's happening. But we will still need student supervisors because we're still going to have staff that are going to be out. And if we can't get, we're still going to have staff that are going to have to be remote, even when everybody gets the vaccine. So we still will have the need. Did I answer your question, I hope, Jen?
It did. And then they would be the primary people in those spaces versus pulling other staff, other certified staff to cover those spaces if we were able to fill them. Obviously, that's the question. You don't know if you'll be able to fill them, but hopefully we will.
Yes.
Further discussion? Roll call vote?
Carla,
Aye.
Joe,
Yes.
Lizzie,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Renee, David,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Next up, we have approval of the start times memorandum. Can I get a motion to approve the start times memorandum of understanding as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote?
Joe,
Yes.
Lizzie,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Renee, David,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. We'll move on to reports and discussion. Did you guys need to take a stretch break? You guys want to take a stretch break?
I'm good.
Let's do a 5-minute stretch, please. Let's come back at 9:20. Thanks. Okay, we're at 9:19. We'll give it another minute for everyone to get back. We're at 9:20. Is everyone back, Laura? We'll go ahead and get started. The first report we have tonight for consideration is a report on the superintendent's search fees. You guys have had a chance to review that in your board packet. Lori, did you have any discussion for us?
No, just in direction of what you'd like me to do next. Last board meeting, you asked for me to gather that information. So I'm happy to do whatever steps you'd like me to do next.
I think we have, I know we have, do we have 2 new board members starting in April? Did we want to hold off the discussion until the new board members are seated? That's in the past what we've done, or would this board like to continue to move forward?
I think we should hold off until the new board is seated. I think that's wise. It would be, I think, a sign that we weren't trying to rush a process.
Okay. Should we start, do you think even in terms of narrowing down the firms, we should wait until the new board, or?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I think it's okay to start a little later. I'm sorry, I was waiting for somebody else to talk. I think it's okay to start a little later, honestly, because I think virtually every candidate for superintendent right now has never been as busy as they are. So it's okay. I don't think we're going to be missing out on, too much by delaying the process, even if that goes in, past the summer. It's okay. If it, what I mean is, if it pushes back the rest of the timeline a little bit, that's still okay in my eyes.
Yes, it's just a couple of months, I think. Any others that feel a different way, or, if not, we've gotten the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm okay with waiting for a new board. I was just wondering, when is the month that we really need to really start so that we don't end up in a crunch? And I know it's hard to say how long a search could last. It could be quick, it could be slow, but is there a recommended time at which we really need to start?
If you're asking my opinion, I would, I was already named, I would have started this March, but I think that was a little different. Some places for a district our size, they're usually named by next fall. So I think we can put it back on in May when the new board is seated. Does that sound good to the board?
Yeah, that should be a priority as soon as the new board is seated. We have the information on the search for firms. I think there could be a group of us that continue to kind of work on it and get it ready for the new board when they come in, to make that a top priority.
Sure. And whatever else you want us together, we need to be together, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. But I think it does have to be one of the first things this new board does.
I agree.
Okay. Any further discussion on the topic of superintendent search? Okay, next up then we have a written report and a presentation on one-to-one technology initiatives. I'll turn it over to Lori and your team for the presentation.
Thank you. I don't want to take away what they're going to tell you tonight, but I asked Dr. Kiefer and Dr. Thomas and Mr. Geisy to look into where we're at to go to the e-learning. Because we are in a remote learning situation now that we're an e-learning district, we are not. So this team has been working on what we need to do to get there because we want to be an e-learning district. This was part of our plan to do this in a number of years. That's been consolidated because we want to do it sooner than that. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kiefer. If you would like to, I hope I didn't just steal everything you were going to say, but go ahead.
You did. That's okay. Waiting for Brooke to start the PowerPoint here. Awesome. Thank you, Brooke, so much. So good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Kiefer. I'm the Assistant Director of Teaching and Learning. I'm here tonight to talk to you about e-learning, which is very different from remote learning. As I talk about e-learning, this is in the context of a normal school year with no hybrid teaching and no remote teaching. Next slide, please. So e-learning allows schools to continue instruction at home in case of a snow or cold day instead of canceling school a day and then adding those days in June. E-learning plans require a lot of planning, as you can imagine, and must be board approved and verified by our Lake County Regional Office to make sure we're adhering to Illinois School Code. Next slide, please. So the board's role is to hold a public hearing, review, and then approve the plan, and this plan will last for a total of 3 years. Next slide. So why do we need e-learning days? Well, it keeps the continuity of instruction and curriculum moving forward instead of canceling school, so we don't have to add days in June. And with careful planning, we can also provide 504 and IEP services on e-learning days as well. Next slide, please. So the next 2 slides list the requirements we need to follow according to school code to meet the Illinois State Board of Education expectations. So I'm not going to read them all, but you can see that equity is important along with expectations for 5 hours of instruction, which can be synchronous or asynchronous. Next slide, please. So also we need to plan for PD, for students, staff, and parents, and also include a clear communication plan for all stakeholders. Finally, it's important to work with our union on this plan as well. Next slide. So based on all of these requirements, as Dr. Casey says, we have a lot of work to do, and currently Woodland is not able to use e-learning days. And of course, this is in the context of a normal school year. Next slide, please. So our next step is to make e-learning a reality, and we are doing that through a committee called the One-to-One Technology Committee. And as you can see, we have a lot of work to be done on not just e-learning, but other things as well. And really this committee is an extension of the Woodland Aspires program, and part of that will be e-learning. Next slide. So this committee has about 35 to 38 people on it, and it includes staff from all schools and staff from various backgrounds. And we don't have parents and students on this right now, but we will in the future, closer to spring or summer when we're ready for it. And of course, the goal is to present the plan, hold a public hearing in July, and then hopefully gain board approval in August, because we definitely need time to plan training, work on communication plans, and make sure we have technology equipment in place. And that's it. Any questions?
When I asked Vicki to have it 5 minutes or less, she really stuck to that. So thank you, Vicki.
You're welcome.
That was a good job.
Thank you.
I really thought it was important that the board and the community was aware that I've seen different people say, and even internally here, like, oh, good, now we don't ever have to worry about having snow days again. And so this is something that this committee is going to work on, and we're going to take care of. If something happens this year, just like we did this week, we had teachers that were in the building. We told them you can go do remote learning from home. So we're fine for this year because we can call a remote learning day, but next year we wouldn't be. So according to the plan that this committee is working on, we should have everything in place to move forward. So we just wanted to give the board a heads up because we thought you maybe asked the same questions that our teachers are getting asked or the community is getting asked, and assumed that we're good to go, but we will be.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you. Questions, board members, comments, questions?
No, thanks. It just seems like a really necessary step. So good.
Yes.
I do think this is a prime example.
Okay, well,
One of the,
and there,
you know, I think there's things that have come out of.
sorry, you're-
I'm sorry. Can you hear me or no?
is it me or was your? I wasn't able to hear you, but maybe it's my connection.
I was just saying that this is one of the examples of lessons learned during remote learning and how we can do better. And this is a great example of we would have waited a couple years till we got around to everything else we were doing, and now we realize we can do it sooner and it's better for everybody. So we look at this as a win and something that, you know, okay, we can do this. It's what we need to do right now for education. So I'm excited about it.
Great job. Okay, thank you. Next up then, we have a written report on summer school programming. We have a written report in our packet. Do you have a presentation as well?
There is no presentation. However, I do have Dr. Maychuk, who again, I said I need you to revamp our summer school program, and he and Dr. Walls and Jordan Anderson and Jenny Pilcher did that. So Bob, can you just give a quick summary of summer school and the report that was given to the board?
Hi, of course. So, and I really want to thank Jordan and Jenny and Lene for working collaborative with me to put something together that we're really excited about. Elements that people from Woodland who are familiar with the summer school program will recognize. You know, we certainly are offering extended school year, and we're offering the Wildcat Summer Adventures. One of the things that we wanted to do, because of remote learning and because of some of the feedback from parents in these focus groups and even some of the comments to the board, just people being concerned about our kids missing anything, we wanted to expand all those offerings. So not only the enrichment opportunities and the arts type things and the STEAM type experiences, but also we wanted to expand opportunities for kids to get additional support in English language arts and math. And so our proposal includes not only the traditional camp experiences that would occur right at the end of the current school year and go into, you know, the middle of June and early July, but we wanted to offer a second round, so to speak, that would start in the middle of July and then go to early August, backing up to the new school year, particularly for kids when you look at assessment data and you worry about that summer slide and maybe kids filling in gaps or having some gaps to start the new school year. We thought that offering some academic support prior to the start of the new school year might be helpful. So we've accounted for that and we've budgeted for that. Ideally, all of these classes would run in person, but I think one of the positives to come out of this remote learning is that our teachers are doing it really well, and our kids and families are adapting really well, and it really could be a hybrid model in the summer where we could certainly reach a lot more kids if we offered learning experiences virtually as well as in person. So, and scenarios for both of those are in the report that you received from our committee. So,
questions, board members?
I just want to say I love this. I mean, once the families are able to send their kids back to school or continue to send them remotely, I think everybody is going to need help catching up in one way or another. And I think that this is I'm so glad that we're thinking about this and that we're going to build out the summer school program to help with families who are worried about, maybe learning that's being lost right now. So thank you very much for your work. And I can't say enough how much I support this.
Yeah, I would agree. Any further comments or questions?
The only thing I would just add that we're talking about like 2,000 students even, Bob, in the first program. I mean, the numbers are large of what we can accommodate if this works out. So it's exciting.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion? You want to move forward with the written report on annual staffing plan for the 2021-2022 school year?
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Little. So I do have a slide, and Brooke can get a chance to get it up. So every year, we examine our staffing needs, and we look at some important tenets as we make those decisions. This year was not an easy year to make recommendations or predictions, as we're still uncertain of what the fall may look like in terms of our learning environments. So we always look to make no programming decreases to students, and any changes that we'd make would be for the betterment of students. So a central guiding assumption of our plan is how can our district realign or create new positions to best meet the educational and social needs of our changing and future student population. So we asked our departments and our school leaders to critically analyze existing positions, current and future projected student enrollments, and what positions might be beneficial to help meet the strategic plan. Next slide. As projected in the reworked McGibbon population and enrollment forecast, which we conducted in 2016, we continue to experience declines in student enrollment. Since 2017, the district enrollment has decreased by 803 students. Current enrollment shows a decline of 369 students from 2019-20 to 2020-21. However, we have to be cognizant of student enrollments that are just abnormal due to the pandemic. So our demographic trends continue to show an increase in our minority student body, and the number of children who live in poverty remains relatively steady. Presently, the district low-income population is at 36.9%, which represents 1,873 students. Fiscal year 21 is the third year that our district has operated with dramatically lower class sizes. Oh, I'm still on the other page, sorry, Brooke. The decision to dedicate staff resources to lower class size was done in an effort to improve student learning and to foster some positive relationships between students and families, thereby hoping to increase student learning and achievements. It's a delicate balance as we try to determine appropriate staffing resources while being fiscally responsible. Annually, we're tasked with the responsibility to reduce anticipated deficit spending in a short-term goal of achieving a balanced budget. As our expenditures continue to rise, administration is always searching for solutions to mitigate deficits. This includes that we only request staffing changes that are mission critical to the organization. So as we enter our fourth year of reduced class sizes, the FY22 staffing needs estimate the high end of the range. So due to budgetary constraints only, in future years, the administration recommends that we do conduct an analysis of which grades can still sustain those lower class sizes and still dictate the necessary budget that we need. Over the past 3 years, reduced class sizes has added $3.75 million to our annual budget expenditures. We just did not feel this was the year to start looking at raising class sizes as we move into next year because it's so unpredictable and we're still in the pandemic and we don't want more students in a class. So as a result of the recommended FY22 additions and reductions, the district estimates an expenditure savings of $276,825. The savings will offset a portion of the anticipated deficit that we realize next year. Expenditure reductions will lead to significant future savings as well, and our proposed staffing next year will save the district an estimated $1,499,372 by FY26. Our retirees are essential as they help fund. I also help fund our salary increases. The retiree count is up. We have 7 certified staff that are looking to retire this year. So our total retirement savings is estimated to be at $621,107 for FY22. So now the next page, Brooke, thank you, that Mr. Bobeck and I shared a report with the board regarding the recommendations, reductions, allocations, and additional positions. So I'm going to start with the reductions. There are several that are based on enrollment reduction projections, including a reduction of 2 third-grade positions, 1 fourth-grade position, and a team at the middle school. This is a 7th, 8th grade team split, and this is the 3rd year of a roll-up, and we do not need that full team. Therefore, the split team will be dissolved, and we have about approximately 50 students that we're able to absorb on dual and non-dual teams. Doing this does increase the class size, but not significant enough, and there will be no projections over 24 in a class with the average being about 23.5 in sixth grade, 23.1 in seventh grade, and 22.5 in eighth grade. There is a possibility that one class may go over those numbers slightly. We've learned a lot through this pandemic, and we've learned that at our elementary school, we do not at this time need our children to be attending a computer lab class. So we're looking to reduce those two positions and add a technology integration specialist at that school. Also at our primary school, we had no technology support positions. And now that we have full day kindergarten, our classroom teachers are reading more in the classrooms because they have more time in their classrooms to read stories to the children. If we take the full-time library position and change it to a technology integration specialist and a library split, children will still be able to check out books and visit the library as they are now, and staff and families would still have the necessary technology specialists available to them to help support them. Also at our elementary schools, we have a librarian in each school as well as 2 library assistants. Due to our declining enrollment and a retirement, we're recommending to reduce 1 library clerk at elementary. So each school would still have a librarian, they'd still have a library assistant, and then they'd split that library assistant that would float between East and West. And after examining our special education numbers and how our students are rolling up, we would also reduce a staff member at middle school in our special education department. Next, we took a long, hard look at the next couple of years, where we came from and where we want to go as far as our technology department. And I'm going to have Mr. Geisy briefly explain the changes that we're recommending for his department.
Thank you, Dr. Casey. Good evening, everyone. So as Dr. Casey said, everyone was asked to look at their departments, take a look at the structure, look at both the present support and then what would be needed in the future. Taking a look at the technology department to give a little bit of a historical perspective. The department structure has been in place since 2006. At that time, we had 14 technology resources. Through financial reviews from 2006 to 2009, the department was reduced by 6 positions to its current structure today, which is 9. It's a flat organization with technicians wearing many different hats, supporting many different technologies. Back in 2006, to give you some perspective, we had 1,310 technologies in the district. We supported 28 district applications, 100 staff applications, and we averaged about 8,000 help desk tickets per year. Today, we support 11,355 technologies, 70 district applications, over 1,000 teacher applications, and we handle about 31,000 help desk tickets during the course of the year. So one of the things that I did was I took a look at neighboring districts, took a look at what their structures were. I looked at school districts that were very similar in size to our district. Also looked outside the box and took a look at some of the districts being recognized across the country for things they're doing with technology, and looked at the structures that they were supporting. We're moving into what the experts are calling the 4th generation of technology, which will be an explosion of technology in the classroom. It'll be driven by personalized learning, which we're seeing today, and then all the new technologies that are coming out related to digital, artificial intelligence, and some of the other advanced technologies. So it was pretty clear looking at the structures of the technology departments, the flat organization would not support where we're going, what the direction would be, that we would need to have a little bit more narrower scope to support these requirements and to stay on top of where things are happening. What I'm proposing is 3 different organizational groups within the technology department. Pretty common that the infrastructure group would still have to be maintained. During our financial review reductions, we have that department today, or that group today, is being supported by a manager of technology services. And then we have 2 outside consulting firms that support our data, our voice, and our security. I'm recommending a new group focus for classroom technologies, having a lead position with an application technician that would be focused and be in a position to be scalable to support classroom growth and changes. And then lastly, with the personalized learning, moving and continuing to support our rescue centers, our student technologies, we would have a group that would be, again, led and have technicians that would support our one-to-one technologies, whatever they end up being, both in the present and in the future. As a part of this, I'm not recommending any reductions to any of our staff, would not be letting any of them go, would be requiring them, though, to gain and add additional skill sets through certifications to support these new technologies in the new direction. They would continue to have a job. We would pay for them to obtain those certifications, making sure we set aside time during our work day for them to be able to train and continue to work towards getting those certifications. So none of our current staff. There would be one additional staff member, and that would be for an administrator of the network, really with a focus on Windows. We've had a huge growth in the Windows support area. We've always been traditionally an Apple district, pretty centric around the Apple technologies, but when Apple moved away from servers and applications continue to be introduced into the district, we have quite an extensive now virtualized server environment of about 60 different servers. Our kids at the middle school, and then eventually our kids at intermediate through Project Lead the Way, they're running technology on Windows platforms as well. So there's a big need for that. We've, in the past 2 years, moved all of our building controls for the O&F department in underneath our environment, and those are all Windows. So I am recommending one FTE, but no changes to the rest of the department.
Thank you, Dan. And then finally, due to increased caseloads, we're looking at adding a 0.6 psychologist position at intermediate. And we're also asking for an additional nurse next year due to the increased need due to the pandemic. That will be a float position. We would determine where we would need that person depending on what the fall looks like. And we're also asking for a 0.5 transportation secretary to be added. Many times we're finding that the transportation secretaries over there, due to our driver shortage, are having to drive, and we don't have somebody there to answer the phone. So that department has asked for that. Next, Chris can certainly answer. You can see from these recommendations this is going to impact the district from a financial standpoint. We're closely watching some of the unknowns, such as kindergarten and first grade numbers. So, for example, we had a lot of families, we anticipated a lot of families that did not register their children for kindergarten this year. They may register them for next year. So we anticipate those numbers may go up. We also, we don't know what social distancing and hybrid will look like in the fall due to the pandemic. So I just want to make the board aware. We may need to make, this is such an unusual year, may need to make an additional request for additional positions or changes as those things come up. The numbers speak for themselves. We're looking at a 6.9 reduction of staff, which results in $276,825 in savings. And there is a number of positions we didn't fill this year due to the health crisis, so we factored that into the cost analysis. As you can see, next month the board's going to take action. The board will take action from a position standpoint. So then the administration will examine what that means from a people standpoint and take into account retirements, job sharing, staff going on leave, returning from leaves, certification, and all those other things that we do in order to have action requests ready if we have to do any honorable dismissals. And finally, we're currently gathering information from staff committees on how we could use what we've learned this past year to make next year even better than before for our students. Again, if there's any unexpected changes between now and next month that comes up at any of these committees, I will include that in a weekly communication and communicate that to you prior to the board vote in February. So any questions on the staffing report?
Questions, board members? Okay, well.
Thank you.
Always hard to hear about staff reductions, but definitely understand why it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
See what the new year continues to bring us.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next up, we have written report on the middle school roof replacement. My internet's moving kind of slowly, so I apologize. At this point, I need to check see why I have been having trouble this week. So in the packet, there is a written report. Do you have an overview for us as well?
Yes. We've talked about this a couple times at our last two finance committee meetings. Middle school roof is aging, even though it's a metal roof, and it's deteriorating in some portions. Some of the panels over our addition are sliding, which is not good for a metal roof. They're sliding anywhere from 4 to 6 inches. We had originally slated a portion of the roof to be replaced or repaired the following year. However, we have this project kind of goes in tandem with solar. The solar that was awarded to us by the state of Illinois is actually 99.9% still on the table. Siemens believes there's an extension that can be had through November. The middle school roof itself is going to take 25 weeks. It's such a big school, so it's going to have to be done over a period of 2 years. The area that is deteriorating the worst, that has the panels that are sliding, that's actually where the solar would go. So we've asked Wold Architects to take a look and come up with some early cost estimates, and some of them are very jaw-dropping if you look through their report. Full roof replacement of a metal roof, they had at upwards $15 million. It's 14 for replacing the roof, $1 million for replacing the gutters, and some of the snow gym areas that have all basically broken off due to snow slide because they were either not put on properly or not put on enough. We're looking at different options though. With metal roofs, usually after 25 years, you have to put a coating on there, a protective coating, which should keep it in working condition for the next 25 years. And I believe the theory behind that is that if you keep doing that, you could probably keep the roof longer and longer and longer, such as why there are people that get metal roofs. There's an option of retrofitting or putting plates over the existing plates. We got the early numbers. If you look through the report, like I said, the highest number is 15 million. We've got numbers in there that are about 5.4 to 6.4 million, which is closer to our estimates, which didn't break 4 million. We were thinking 4, maybe up to 5. Our architects say that some of these could be on the high side. We wanted to bring it to you this early, even though we're not anticipating, if we move forward with the project, voting until April for bids that come in, but the timeline would be we'll talk to you in January, we'll talk to you in February once we have a little bit more details. We'll also vote to go out to bid in February because our March meeting is a little bit earlier due to spring break. We might have the bids in. We won't have time to put it in the board packet. We would have to vote on the bids that we received in April. That would be the timeline to do all of this. Like I said, one of the reasons we're thinking about doing it is the solar project. I have to mention that we would start roofing with the areas that do have the solar. Right behind the roofing that goes in, the solar project would start because there is a deadline for the solar project. That project would have to continue on into the school year when the students were in. Now it's over the gymnasiums, which is good because noise shouldn't be an issue, and they can fence off areas and make sure that the whole location is safe. Whereas when we did our project over at intermediate school, it was over classrooms, so that wouldn't have been the best option because it would have been too noisy. Gymnasiums make this ideal. I think I kind of wrapped up with everything there. I would say that if we don't have objections, I would like to get the architects to do a little bit more work in detail and start planning out bid specs. So that way we could be ready to go for the February board go to bid vote. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions, board members?
Yeah, just to reiterate, I think it's really important that we move pretty quickly with it, because as soon as we're able to do it, the solar reduces the cost of it. So it offsets it a little bit. It doesn't offset it completely, but it helps. So it feels, like we're rushing, but we're rushing for a really good reason.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, we'll go ahead and move. Thank you, Chris, for that presentation. We'll move forward with the written report on district lighting upgrades. That's also a written report in the board packet. Did you want to provide a summary on this one as well, Chris?
Sure. This is another multi-million-dollar project, but these are the types of projects that actually lead to savings expenditures or expenditure savings over time. The project itself is going to be a multi-million-dollar, $2.2 million estimate. We're just changing over all of our light bulbs to LEDs. Some of the studies have shown that there's improved student learning with LEDs. Clearly, there's less maintenance. LEDs last a lot longer. And you get the energy savings. So when you look at the early, I believe I included the early cost savings in there. There would be payback to this. They're estimating it at 13 years. By the time 20 years is up, there would actually be positive gain to the district of about 1.4, almost $1.5 million. This is off of initial Siemens work. We're asking them for more detailed work. We want to break it down and make sure that we review all of the expenses and all of the savings in a little bit more detail. But the good thing with this project is it's not going to impact any type of student education. This could be done at night. It could be done second shift. So, this is a good chance for the district not only to do a little good, save a little money, but also become a little bit greener in the environment, which is fantastic to become less reliant on energy. And I think that about wraps.
So when would we anticipate doing this project?
What we would do is I'd ask Siemens to come out in February and have a more detailed report.
Okay.
And we could actually do a March vote on this. I know that Siemens has attended the finance committee meeting that was in December. The January, there wasn't any updates because between December and January, there's just too many holidays in between. So they'll come back out again at our March finance committee meeting before they come and present to the board at the February meeting. And then we'd be looking for a March vote as a go, no go to the project.
Okay. Questions, board members, other questions or comments?
Yeah, just that I think we can't find enough projects like this that will save the district money and are energy efficient and are good for the earth and good for what we're trying to do. So good work on it, because it at the same time saves our taxpayers money, but also it's good for everybody. So thank you. And I'm really glad that we're doing things like this.
Other comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, next item, a written report on the 2021-2022 draft calendar. We'll have to approve this calendar by when, Dr. Casey?
Next month at the February board meeting. I just want to bring to the board's attention, we're not approving it tonight. Obviously, we're approving it next month. This is just the written report on it. What came up this year was, and I put in your board packet, that this calendar does not exactly match Warren High School for winter break. So you'll see we match Warren High School for spring break. Our start dates are always different, but we try to keep our vacation breaks together. Warren is going on break December 23rd, and they're not returning until December 10th. I'm sorry, January 10th. And ours is the 2 weeks surrounding the 20th to the 31st. So it's up to the board. I put this one forward. Grayslake High School, this is what Grayslake High School is following. They're following the 20th, through the 31st, returning on the 3rd. So some different districts are doing some different things based upon when the holidays fall this year.
So why did Warren decide to do something different?
Well, Warren does theirs first, and I believe it has to do with when they want to do their finals and the days and how that would work.
Yeah, so and can you tell me again what days Warren's going to be out versus when we're out?
Sure. Warren is, they're going out on the 23rd, and they return on the 10th. And we're going out on the 20th, return on the 3rd.
Okay.
So we have 2 extra days than we have also. So if we were to adopt that, we'd have to add 2 days somewhere. So I'm just looking for some direction from the board if this is what you'd like me to bring forward next month, or if you'd like me to match Warren's calendar exactly. And then I'd work with our union to see where we want to add those other 2 days.
For students who have siblings, older siblings in high school, do you know where the majority of them go? Grayslake or Warren?
Warren.
Yeah. I mean, I would be concerned about the number of our students who, in high school, it's much harder to miss school, right? And certainly if there's finals, you're not missing before break. I mean, I don't know how many families, are going out of town or who go out of town. I know we do have a lot of families that, if they have families over, out of the country. Obviously this year is different and we can't use that as any, we don't know. And there wasn't travel, but I would anticipate that we'll see an increase in travel once people are vaccinated and feel more comfortable. So I would think that we will see a greater number of people who will actually go to visit family that they haven't been able to see for a long amount of time due to the pandemic. I would just be concerned that we're going to have a lot of students out if we don't match Warren, because as a parent of a kid in an elementary and a high school, and if I'm going to go out of town for the break, I'm going to err on my high schoolers because it's much harder for them to miss school than it is for my elementary student to miss school.
I think we should match Warren.
And we have traditionally matched Warren, correct?
Yeah. We haven't had a year like this in a long time where it was so different from the holidays. And I will say when I've talked to different superintendents, it's different. So Lake Villa is doing this one. Gurney 56 isn't going to match Warren. Milburn is doing this one. But our children our siblings are primarily at Warren. We do have some that are at Grayslake, but it's a small number. So I can bring forward the calendar that would match Warren, and then we'll add 2 additional days in there, if that's what the board would like me to do for next month.
I would be in favor of that. Joe said it very succinctly. I think we should match Warren.
When you talked to the teachers union, what were their thoughts?
They asked us to go forward with this, but I said we needed to talk to the board tonight, and if we needed to come back, then we'll figure out together where to put those other days.
And what was the rationale for that decision?
For the decision,
with the staff, why did the staff favor this schedule over the other? Did you guys discuss that?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure why.
And which one is, because in the past, we've always tried to see Lake County Regional Office of Education proposed schedule. Is that what we did, or is that what Warren did?
I believe this is Lake County's. Is that correct, Laura? This is.
Okay. Because, yeah, that's what we've always tried to stay with, that Lake County schedule. And if, that way, I'm not sure why Warren decided to do something different. Because I thought that was what they always tried to do as well. Work around the Lake County schedule.
Right.
So that's disappointing. Okay. Any further discussion?
I'm hearing that I'm going to bring the Warren forward, Warren calendar, winter break calendar forward, and I'm going to work with the union to find those 2 additional days somewhere. Add them on. Is that correct?
Okay.
Sure. I have correct. Is that the correct direction?
Well, it sounds like we had at least 2 board members that
That's what I
wanted that, correct?
I would suggest.
Or
Okay.
3 then. So,
Okay. Thank you.
okay. Thank you. Next up, we have a review of the ethylene oxide resolution. That was something that was discussed a while back, and then we got into the pandemic. And I believe David asked this one to come back on for the board.
Yeah, if I could be heard real quickly, I think this.
Before we start, we do have Mayor Kavorik that's joining us this evening, so if we could let her in the meeting.
Yeah, let's go ahead and let the mayor into the meeting, please. Oops. Hey there, Mayor, are you able to hear us okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. You're probably aware we asked you to join the meeting tonight to get an update on the ethylene oxide situation in the village of Gurnee. David Weinstein, one of our board members, asked that we bring this resolution back tonight. So we're going to turn it over to David for his rationale as to why he wanted this back on the agenda tonight. David?
Well, Judge, I will say, well, Carla, last time this was up, you wanted some more time to look into this. Well, I've got a lot of experience with this. I've been researching this pretty extensively. And I just real briefly, ethylene oxide, it's a cancerous carcinogen. It's not safe at really any level. And I think that our resolution, which is similar to other resolutions other school boards have done in the area, is very fitting. And I think as elected officials, I think it's important that we speak out on this. I mean, right now, Lake County is the only county in Illinois where the cause of death, the leading cause of death, this is all pre-COVID obviously, was cancer, not heart disease, what have you. And we have one of the highest juvenile cancer rates in the country. That just doesn't happen. So I think that even though obviously it's not binding or anything, but I think as elected officials, we have a duty to speak out on things like this, especially something like ethylene oxide, which the literature shows affects children upwards of 60 times more than it affects adults. So obviously this is a major health crisis for our community. So I think that this resolution, which is similar to other resolutions, I think our committee did a very good job, is a very good thing. And I would wholeheartedly ask that our board approve it. Thank you.
Mayor Kavorik, did you want to give us an update on what's been happening since we last had you at our board meeting, please?
Yeah, I would disagree with some of what your board member has said, but I would need to come back with the facts and the data and a PowerPoint as far as what's going on right now. Is we've completed our testing that was in combination with Waukegan and Lake County. All of that data has been submitted to the ATSDR, the Agency of Toxic Substance and Abuse the Division. It's part of the CDC. That will do a public health assessment here for us in this area that's very specific. We know that cancer rates for the United States are 1 in 4. Worldwide, they're 1 in 3. So this will put ours in context of what cancer rates are around the United States. So that part of the monitoring has been done. The state of Illinois passed a very aggressive and law reducing emissions. So what is currently permitted by the federal government has been greatly reduced by the state of Illinois. So it brought down the emissions to the risk level is 0.02 parts per billion. Based on the new regulations and the monitoring that's being done, we're down to 0.002 particles per billion. So we're seeing that with the very limited amount of pounds that are being released. That is continuous monitoring. That is reported quarterly. So we do get updates. All of us get updates from the IEPA. Those are published on the village's website. If anything, is spotted that needs to be explained, the IEPA has been very, very good about communicating with us. The EPA is currently working on, because a lot of what came out of what went on in Willowbrook and why the EPA was a little more aggressive there than they were in monitoring here, is because of the non-point sources or the background. So typically what you see and what is considered the normal range is 0.2 to 0.4, and that's point and non-point sources. They were surprised, and they actually used a stronger word than that, by the amount of non-point sources. So they have added ethylene oxide to continuous monitoring all across the United States. So the EPA does monitoring today for probably 30 different chemicals that are in our air. That goes on all the time. Ethylene oxide has been added to that, so that monitoring is going on, because now they want to do the studies on the point and non-point sources, some of the long-term effects of all of that, which has not been studied. What we have to date was studies that were done on workers that were chronically exposed, and then they extrapolated that out, and did this modeling, and it's how they got the risk assessment. So now they're kind of going into that next level with all of this monitoring that they're doing nationwide, to start looking at the long-term effects, and is that risk assessment appropriate, and what does it mean? So as far as the village is concerned, obviously we stay in communication with the IEPA and the EPA, but we are waiting on the ATSDR report, which is very specific to our community, Waukegan, and the surrounding area. They are part of the CDC, so as you can imagine, they're dealing with the same crisis that we are here locally, so we had anticipated probably receiving it by now, but we've not had any word from them that it's imminent. But they have promised us when the report's ready, they will come, they will sit down, they'll do a public meeting, they will explain it in depth. And then that's when we'll be able to make some decisions on what new tactics or strategies or what we may want to do differently. So that's really like our next key milestone in all of this here locally, besides all the studies that are being done at the EPA level.
I would take some umbrage at some of the things that the mayor says, but this isn't the proper forum for me to bring that up here. This is the school board, so I'm not going to do that. I would say that this is a very good motion. This is a very good thing for us to pass here right now. This is not safe at any levels, and it's been going on for years and years. And I don't think that our local government has really done anything. Monitoring, I know that Congressman Brad Snyder recently got a major multi-million-dollar federal grant for more intensive monitoring, which our municipality didn't even apply for.
And if you read it,
Anyway.
Mr. Weinstein, you would know that we did not qualify for that grant. So we can take that offline. I think this is a cheap shot, considering that you're a candidate and you're using this as a political agenda.
But I'm going to say that I think that we should pass a solution, and I think it's a very good thing, and I'd ask the board to pass it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
And I would say that the Village of Gurnee has always had a very strong relationship with the Woodland School Board. We work together closely, and if you'd like to sit down, and we have over the last 2 years been very transparent and communicated constantly with you about everything we are doing. So I don't know why you think a resolution is going to make more happen.
Not just for
Yeah,
you, I think it's for all.
What would be the purpose? I'm sorry, what would be the purpose of the resolution, David?
I think as as school board members, this is something that affects children at a great level, and our children are being affected by this. So I think that this certainly is something that's been passed by other school boards, and I wholeheartedly think that it should be passed here.
And I would say to the school board, if you would really like to reduce ethylene oxide, there's a lot of things that could be worked on the non-point sources too, which are contributing to the 0.2 to 0.4 range that is normal for our area. It's the same ranges that are found everywhere else. I mean, these are things that the village is looking at, what is within our control that we can reduce, and let's focus on those. So there's a lot of things we could work on together that go beyond anything that's in this resolution. And I'd be more than happy to sit down with any one of you, go through this in detail from the beginning, and all of the things that we've learned and the things that we think are practical to tackle. But again, we really are waiting for the ATSDR. That is normally not done on a local level. The Lake County Health Department, Mark Pfister, really pulled some strings to get one done on this small of a level. They're usually done on a much bigger scale. So we're, that's very unusual to get that kind of attention from the ATSDR. So I think we'll be way ahead when we get that study and be able to walk away with some action items from that report.
Further questions for the mayor on this presentation, or on the possible need for a resolution?
That's the need for it. We've got kids who are dying of cancer.
Hey, David, let's give other board members a chance to talk, please.
Well, I'm not done talking yet, Carla. We've got kids.
Well, we have to give everybody a chance to talk. You can't talk over everybody else. Let's go around the board and make sure before you, if there are any other board members that would want a chance to talk. Let's not do that. It doesn't have to turn into a political situation. We're trying to make a decision as a board as to why there needs to be a resolution. It's not an opportunity to grandstand, okay? Let's not turn it into that. I think board members want, let's start with, I'll start at the top of the screen and go around and see if other, Lizzie, you're at the top of my screen, so I'll start with you if that's okay.
Yeah, I did just have one comment, not to negate that it is an issue, but the way, when I read this resolution, especially the bottom part, or by, hereby resolved, it almost to me seems a tad outdated. It was more pertinent to what was going on a year ago when there was all the clamor for testing and we're not testing and we need to test. And it's urging that all this take place expeditiously. It's that part, we've kind of passed that portion already. So as this one's written right now, I don't think it's really appropriate. This one.
You're saying,
and I don't know.
Need to really language.
I don't even know that I think we need another one, but as for this one, I don't think it's appropriate at this point.
Okay, and then next on my screen is Jennifer.
I have no comment right now. Sorry, no, I have no comment right now. I would, do so with a vote when it's, at that point.
Okay. Joe?
Yeah, I'm there too. I'm just listening, trying to, kind of get a sense of where we are in the process and, what to do next. So, I appreciate the information and the energy behind this. And, but yeah, I don't have any questions right now.
Okay. Corey, any questions or comments?
No, same as the other two said, but yeah.
On the resolution. Yeah,
I'd be interested to see what that report says, later on. I know the CDC, we're waiting on the CDC, but I'd be interested what the report says.
Okay. David, any further comment?
I think the board knows how I feel.
Yeah, I think not, I think, but Lizzie made some really good points on the resolution being outdated from what, that was over a year ago. So I think we would, if we're going to do something in terms of resolution, it would definitely need to be updated. I'm not sure what a resolution does, I don't want to be, I just would like to understand a little bit more of what it does. The testing is already happening on so many levels, and we're expecting another report to come out soon from the CDC. So I'm not sure what do we get from a resolution. Do you have any insight on that, Mayor Cravair?
Well, I would say to you, when we do get the ATSDR report, and it'll be a public meeting, that we will come away with action items or things we want to work on. And believe me, and Carla, you've known me for a long time, I will not hesitate to come to the board and say, I need you to add your voices to ours, and here's what we're going to accomplish. And we're going to do it, whether it's letters or lobbying or resolutions or whatever. I mean, I will not hesitate. It's just we don't have a clear path of action right now because we need this report. And we've done, we paid, we contributed to the monitoring in that. We know the IEPA is doing stuff and EPA is doing stuff. And David rightly brings up Congressman Schneider's work at the federal level on this. And so they're doing things. But once we have a report that's local and specific to us, then we adjust the sales and what do we need to be doing? What can we do? And I would certainly come to all the school boards and ask for your help with that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, thank you. We appreciate you staying up late and attending our board meeting at such a late time in the evening.
Well, I am delighted. Thank you. And again, I can come and bring a nice PowerPoint with a lot of information. I'm more than happy to meet one-on-one. Anyone who contacts the village about ethylene oxide, we always sit down, we talk and that. So it's a very complex topic, and we really didn't go into all the science behind it, but I'm happy to do that with everything I've learned over the last year and a half, almost 2 years.
And Carla, I have all kinds of experts in the field I could bring in here. If you really want to hear from the expert's mouth what's going on, I could do that because I've been in contact.
Okay. Well, thank you.
We're dealing with experts too, so.
Yeah, well, sounds like a discussion, maybe a presentation at a later date. So we appreciate you both on that one. Well, thank you. Next up, if there's no further discussion or questions, then we'll move forward with the agenda. Next, we have board improvements in operations.
Are we going to have a vote on this? I made a motion. Is someone going to second it?
No, this is a report.
I thought it was we were supposed to vote on this. That's why I asked it to be brought up. Or vote on the
You asked that it be brought to the reports. That's what we did.
No, I asked it to be brought up for a vote. If you want to take it to the next meeting, that's fine, but I'm going to ask for a vote then.
Okay.
I want to vote.
We'll put it on the
agenda. I want to vote. I want people on the record. We have to have a vote.
Okay.
Carla, I
will
make a motion. I want to vote on this. I want it up for a vote on the next meeting. And there shouldn't be a discussion on that. I have a right to ask for that, and that's what I want.
Board, do we have a consensus to bring this back next month as an action item? Because I've heard from Lizzie that she thinks if it comes back, it needs to be updated. So we want to have a discussion on that before we move forward?
I don't necessarily think it needs to come back, but if it did, I think it needs updating.
Yeah, I agree with Lizzie. Also, I'd like to see the report.
Okay. Jennifer and Corey, thoughts?
Yeah, if it's updated, and then, yeah, again, if we have that report, we won't have it next month, but yeah, just at least updating the current form.
Jennifer?
I agree with that.
I'm sorry, can you be more specific?
What Corey said. I think we need the report to really know to have the information we need.
For a particular resolution?
Yes.
So you guys are opting to have the report prior to bringing this back as an action item. Is that what I'm hearing from the board? Is the will of the board?
Maybe we need to have a vote. I want to vote if we're going to kick it again. I'm not letting this go. You've talked to
we're trying to get consensus on when to bring this back, David. And it sounds like the consensus is to get the report first. That's what I'm hearing from the board. That's the will of the board.
Fine. I'm going to submit some other things before the next thing, and I will ask. I'll talk to Lori. You'll get something on this.
Okay.
We'll have more
you
discussion
realize that I'm the board president, and we decide as a team what goes on the agenda. You don't overrule me because you don't like the will of the board. I'm speaking I'm asking the will of the board on when to bring this back. So I think you're making a error to the public to suggest that the superintendent can override the board.
Well, this is a matter of great public importance, and just shoving this off, I don't know what the board is thinking here, but something needs to be done, and I think the board needs to take a stand. And just shoving this off for whenever this report's going to be in, which I know that we've had testing that was done that showed very high levels just recently. So, Carla, you're going to do what you're going to do. I think I know how you feel on this.
Carla, it's the board. I asked the will of the board. So don't say, Carla, I'm going to do. I operate off of what the board wants. So for you to suggest otherwise, it's insulting.
I'm not going to get into this name calling with you here, Carla. I'm done. I'm muting myself.
Did I call a name? No, I said I'm insulted that you suggested that I'm doing something otherwise. I'm insulted that you think that you would suggest to the public that the superintendent can override the will of the board. I just went around and asked 5 other board members what they wanted, and they all asked for more information. That's why we have a discussion.
Well, let's get more information.
It has nothing to do with what Carla wants.
Carla, fine. Then we'll get more information.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Anything further before we move forward?
Just so I'm clear, next month for discussion, or we're waiting for the report? When would you like this back?
Yeah, it sounds like we want to wait for the report, and if we can get some information on when that report will come forward, that would be very helpful. And let's put it back on as a discussion item in case the report does come forward, or if it does, then we can, let's keep it on the radar if that's helpful to David's concerns. But is that okay with the rest of the board members? I got a thumbs up from Lizzie. Corey? Got 2 thumbs up. Speak up, please, because I don't want this to be a situation where David feels that it's my decision. It's not my decision.
Yeah, I think it's
So we
good
have-
to establish a process to do what we're talking about doing. And so, yes.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Joe?
I said, yeah, I think it's good that we establish a process to do what we're talking about doing. And so, yes, I want to take it seriously, of course, because I think it's a health concern and it's really important. But I also want to make sure that we have the information we need and that we're doing our due diligence in terms of updating the resolution so we can get to a point where we feel good about it and we can move in a direction of consensus.
Okay. So David, did you want to take the lead on updating the resolution?
Sure, I'll work on that. I'll work on it.
Okay. Okay.
Anyone want-
Anything further before we move on? I'm sorry, go ahead.
The thing is, anyone want to assist me with that? Joe?
Yeah, I'll help you, David. Absolutely.
Pretty good. We'll work on something. I'll try to clean it up.
Anything further before we move off this topic? Okay. Well, hearing nothing further, we'll move forward with board improvements and operations. Any announcements and committee reports? Okay, hearing none. I know not a lot's going on with committee reports and during this pandemic. Board improvement status request and future board items.
Carla, question. I'm not sure if it belongs in this part of the meeting, but I think at some time in the future, we're going to, or we should probably talk about when we as a board would return to in-person meeting, if we return to in-person meetings, in light of staff returning to school with students.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The whole thing? I wondered if board and ops is.
Yes, I apologize.
Okay. I was asking whether this is the portion where we might begin having a discussion as to if and when the board would return to meeting in person in light of our asking staff to return to teaching hybrid, if it's an appropriate section, to start thinking about it. And
It is
start
the
having
perfect. Right, you're right. This would be the point in the meeting where under board operations, we should discuss that. So did you want to put that on for a discussion next month? Did you want to, do you have a suggestion that you want the board to take up if we've already voted for the return to hybrid learning in after the break? Did you want to suggest the same for the board? What were you thinking?
We could probably put it to the next meeting, but I do think we need to start thinking of it. And my suggestion would be, if we're asking them to return by a certain date, that would probably be an appropriate time for us to also return.
Well, can we do the same method that we used? And I'm sorry, Joe, I didn't mean to talk over you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say I understand what Elizabeth is talking about, and I agree with her sentiments that if our teachers and students are returning to the building, that we should be willing to transition back to meeting in person. That to me sounds right. That I think that's the right thing to do.
Can we take the hybrid approach, though?
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Yeah, I definitely think that we can try to make some accommodations, but I am agreeing with Elizabeth's sentiments.
And I feel like
Yes.
we need to be willing to do the same as we're asking.
For those of you who are asking, though, right?
I guess that is a point.
Okay, we'll put it on the agenda if that's okay with everybody under board improvements for next month. I'm getting nods. Do you have majority nods? Okay, great. Thanks. Is there anything else? And did I miss an item because were there no FOIA requests, or did I overlook that? And if so, I apologize.
You did not. There are none.
Oh, okay. Wow. So anything else for board improvement and operations? Okay, hearing none. Citizen statements. Did we get any more, Laura?
Yes, we
Okay,
have
well,
1, 2, 3,
turn it
4
over to
citizen statements.
4?
Yes.
Okay.
So the first one actually is, it came from the same email address, but they sent it 4 times. And it looks like it's from Larry Kuzma. They say, to be clear, 8 days would mean the world to my children. That experience would mean everything. It is ignorant to put yourself in the shoes of a young child in a pandemic. Of course, it is trivial to you, but it is not to a small child. I wish there were more thought about the kids in this. With statements like this, it's very clear the kids are the last thought in this process for somebody who is making a decision for them. And it just says flexible, concerned parent. The next one is from Bethany Roy. And she says, I'm struggling with how the board can be making decisions about bringing children back to hybrid on teachers being vaccinated. You are speculating as to if that will fix the staffing issues or teacher comfortability. Dr. Casey shared that with some staff will not be able to return at all this year, and no one has presented information as to how many teachers are willing to be vaccinated. There's almost 50% of the students who want to return and are ready for the hybrid option. With mitigations in the buildings, staff and students can be brought back safely now. Almost every other district in Lake County will be starting hybrid this month. I'm very disappointed in the way this issue is being approached and handled for my kindergartner and 3rd grader. Please consider bringing back students before March/April. Let's see, the next one is from, I'm sorry, there's 5, not 4. The next one is from Antoinette Corrales, and it says, Dear Woodland Board, I'm Antoinette Corrales. I'm the parent of a 7th grader at Woodland, and I just want everyone on the board to understand that the reason the majority of people did not choose hybrid is not due to the fear regarding COVID, but more because of the change of the schedule to working parents. Families in our communities want their kids back in class, but not in a way that is abbreviated. Most families I know want their kids back every day, not just 8 days the rest of the year. There are families that are concerned about COVID, but if the survey sent to the families asked why people said no to the hybrid plan, they would find that most found the plan inconvenient or disruptive to their child. Woodland students need to return to school. Kids all over the country are in school, some at 100% capacity. We have so many at-risk kids that are struggling. It is so frustrating to me that most of our board doesn't understand this. I know a number of families looking into alternatives to Woodland next year. It is a shame. It is a shame if we lose those families because our district refuses to return to live learning like so many other schools in the state and country. Antoinette. The next one is from Beth Becker. And she says, I would like to see statistics on how the students are failing or thriving in this pandemic. I understand that we are at about 42.58% in school, but clearly the 42% are not thriving and need help. How much further are you going to let the children in your district fall behind others that are thriving in school? Quite frankly, I have never been more disappointed in this conversation I have just listened to. What is the point of bringing kids back to what is the point of bringing kids back to school the month before summer begins? You have all read the CDC reportings that children should be in school. Your personal emotions are taking precedent to what is truly going on here. Teachers are essential workers. You are allowing teachers who may be compromised are allowed to work remote. When will you actually ask the teachers' opinions? When will you look at the schools around us in person? Libertyville, Lindenhurst, Buffalo Grove, Deerfield, private schools. I do not understand. I am so thankful you have opened our eyes to how the board does not care for the children in their community, and we only have dealt with this for a year. We will be moving into a different district. Please do better for the kids who are staying. Beth. And the last one is from Travis Horan. And he says, first off, thank you, Lori, and the rest of the teachers for your continued support. I know how difficult these times are teaching remotely. The teachers have done a great job through this situation. As a parent of a kindergartner, I see how difficult it is for these 5 and 6-year-olds to learn remotely. I'm afraid these kids will be behind in coming years. We had to put our daughter in therapy because of the psychological effects she has experienced from isolation. The teachers are doing the best they can, and I appreciate everything they are doing. As you can tell, I'm disappointed in how tonight's board meeting went. Lastly, I'm extremely disappointed in the behavior of some of our board members. One of the board members even said "F you," which I find extremely unprofessional. It seemed like many of the board members weren't prepared for this meeting and really don't have an idea of what's going on in these schools. That showed in tonight's meeting. Personal opinions of board members should not play a factor in decisions like this. Travis. That's it.
Thank you. We don't respond to citizen statements at a board meeting, but I'm not aware of a board member that said that. Did I miss something?
Yes, I think you did.
Okay. I will talk to you offline because I'm confused when that was said. Any further discussion before we end this meeting for tonight? We have no reason to return to closed session. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Lizzie?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Renee? David?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Carla?
Aye.
Joe?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Have a great evening, everybody.
You as well.